Welcome and calling the October 12th, 2023 Planning Board to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Chair
Gloria?
LaFaro.
Present.
Vice Chair Finity is absent. The Secretary is here. Board members Catalinato.
Present.
Mutu.
Present.
Neely.
Present.
Fulham.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have some minutes, Gloria?
We do, September 14 and September 28.
September 14 and 28. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Craig, second by Kate. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 6 in favor, 1 absent. Okay, so
I'm just gonna do my stuff first.
you want to do yours,
Yeah.
Anthony? Okay, so number 2, 32 Hill Station Road, Shinnecock Hills.
That's actually just going to be an extension of the action deadlines of the pre-application report until November 9th, 2023.
Okay, motion?
Motion.
Motion by George, second by Gloria, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Anthony, number 3 is off the agenda.
Yep, that's all the agenda.
Okay. Number 4, Joseph Griner, Lot 1, 24 Halsey Road.
Sorry about that. The board might remember this was a request for a covenant amendment. This is 24 Halsey Road, an existing single-family residence. If you look at the aerial, at the time the subdivision was done, 2010 maybe, it created this lot and it created this lot down here. And a 25-foot wide non-disturbance, non-fertilization buffer was imposed. And it seems, based on our research, really primarily as, I guess, as a buffer to the adjacent neighbor. But beyond that, didn't really serve any other purpose. We got a request to do an amendment to eliminate it. There's a lot of bamboo in there. And they wanted to just get rid of the covenant. We did get opposition from the neighbor to the north here. Strong opposition, to be quite honest. Really would like a buffer, and also raised questions about, it being a green belt. I don't agree with the term that it's a green belt. It's a buffer between two property owners. So, having discussions with the property owner to the north, I did talk on a few occasions, and with the applicant's representative for this property. I have a resolution to eliminate the buffer, but a condition, and they're willing to do it, that they have to provide fencing and an evergreen screening along the north property line to at least maintain the visual buffer between the two properties. And
Do we have reports on any of this?
I have a resolution, actually.
Was the other property owner amenable to a fence and screening?
The northern property line would prefer to see the whole buffer stay. I mean, that's the bottom line. But at the very least, would want the board to at least impose something there. Now, I'm not gonna say that that's gonna make that property owner completely happy, but looking at this, that's the,
It's a compromise,
The
so they're
compromise.
both a little unhappy and they're both a little happy.
best we could do sometimes.
And there was a large portion of invasive species of the bamboo
There's bamboo in
that has
there.
to come
I'd like
out.
to get it out, which is so hard to do. And there's a subdivision map. It was so interesting because it really was, I think, just a buffer, because when you look, when they did the subdivision and imposed this buffer, this house was already existing at the time. So notice they didn't impose one down here, where you have a vacant piece of property. So I think there was enough grounds here to consider it. So if you look at the resolution, that first part there that you see up here in all the italicized, that's actually just the language from the actual covenant that says what can and can't happen in those buffers. And on the second page, I recommend approving it, and then subject to providing fencing with evergreen screening along the northerly property boundary in order to maintain a buffer. And yeah, not here, they told me they were completely agreeable. And then, of course, the submission of the legal documents to be approved by the town attorney.
Do we specify what kind of fencing, or is it just?
I mean, if you want to do, you know, we
there
normally
are a lot
don't
of different
because
kinds of
there
fencing.
there is, but, you know, height, I don't, you know, typically like to do because you can't have a 4-foot fence and then it's a required front yard, so, and that would require a variance. So I just say fencing. I believe it's going to be, well, I could find out, I don't know actually.
If the fence is too.
Well, that's why I made sure I said
Evergreen.
fencing with the evergreen to sort
Yeah,
of,
that will cover it.
should cover it.
Okay, any questions? Okay, a motion to approve, motion by Gloria, second by Craig, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Let's see. Number 8 is Anthony's next, it's off the agenda,
Yes, so
9/7.
that, so the board knows, we previously had a redeem that one incomplete, because know it's so far along, because I missed something. And they were great, and they actually just provided me with additional information, but I didn't get a chance to review it. So we don't just take that one off, we don't have to do anything.
Okay, and then,
Hampton 6.
Hampton 6 is one more extension. I actually am meeting with the team tomorrow, so we're just gonna do an extension of the action deadline until October 26, 2023.
okay, motion by Kate, second by George, all in favor. Opposed, abstentions,
What was the extension date?
Oh, I'm sorry, October
10/26.
Thank you. I
6 in favor, 1 absent to complete the vote. And to give you the address, it's 39 West Montauk Highway, Hampton Bays. Okay, the next is 13, the Garrison pre-app.
Yep, so this is a new subdivision application. I have the aerial up here. This is Lewis Road. This is at the corner of Lewis and Old Country Road, and you have the railroad tracks right there. Here's the property up here in yellow. It's an odd-shaped piece. I'm showing some preserved land over here, town preserved land, and there's some way back here that doesn't show up on the aerial. So everybody knows where this property, you know, where it's located. It is in the CR 80 zoning district, 2-acre zoning, as well as the Aquifer Protection Overlay District. I have them up here, but
Pine Barrens compatible growth.
yeah, it is, and I'm sorry I didn't put that in there. I'll fix that.
And what's it for, Anthony?
So let me actually just.
Yeah, do you have
It's easier.
something? Because it doesn't say how many lots here.
Oh, really?
Subdivision?
Four lot plan.
Four
Is
lot,
it a
four
4
lot.
lot?
So,
Oh, I see.
so they came in with a yield map on the whole piece. And actually, I went over the yield map. Everything conforms to the zoning requirements. So they're showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they're actually showing a park area. Typically, if you're not requiring a park to be built on within a subdivision, you don't have to count it towards your yield. But it won't make a difference here because that's not going to net them any additional yield. So it's a 6 lot yield on this property. What they're proposing is I would say partially clustered. It is a cluster of 4 lots. Remember, when you go to 4, you get yourself out of the affordable housing requirement. So they're showing 4 lots down here, a larger lot over here. I don't like all the improvements when they put that on there. And then 2 open space parcels on either side of this, totaling 50% of the property. This one down here does sort of connect up.
Connect, yeah.
So this application actually is complete. I'm going to recommend the hearing for November 9th. But just one thing.
So that this cluster satisfies the requirement to submit
Satisfies
a
the requirement,
cluster.
but what's just one thing, because this affordable thing always gets me. Having done this a long time and having seen that this lot is extremely large compared to the small ones, my concern was, because they labeled this as the main house. To me, that implies there's a second residence potentially. So the applicant knows she can't be here today, but there ultimately would have to be a covenant or something that no carriage house around there, because as far as I'm concerned, now you're into the 5th residence,
one
and
of
then
them should be
cleverly
affordable.
found a way to get out of the affordable housing requirement. So
see.
we've done this before, and Lisa Poyer, who represents, knows that. So, you know, can only have 1 house on there and no second residence.
And what is the square footage on that larger lot?
That is
Just-
3 acres.
And
And
it's
the other
two-
ones are, you know, roughly an acre, acre and a half, something
And
like
it's
that.
2 acre zoning?
It's 2 acre zoning,
Okay.
And how much open space total?
50%. And so it would be, about 6.5, 7 acres, something like that.
Nice.
So we'll deem this one complete, and we'll schedule the hearing for November 9th.
November 9th.
Anthony, is that at the intersection of Lewis and 104?
No, Lewis and Old Country
Old
Road,
Country Road.
is where the Route 9 is.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve
Motion.
and set a public hearing for November 9th?
Motion.
Motion by George, second by Gloria, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Okay, so then Buddha Hampton Site Plan Special Exception,
Bud Hampton.
Bud Hampton, 2033 Montauk Highway, Bridgehampton.
So, everybody knows where this property is. So this is the Carvel site, just sitting out there in Bridgehampton, it's right across from the Bridgehampton Commons.
This is the Carvel that was not going to be in any way changed when we saw the
subdivision.
Connor application 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago.
So now we have an application in, for a change of use, so to speak, but it is a special exception application, as you know. So this is a request for a pre-submission conference for the non-medical cannabis, recreational cannabis retail store to occupy the building. And really, it's a lot of existing condition. You can sort of see here a site plan, Montauk Highway, with some buffers. We're probably going to get into, discussions about all the issues. There's going to be criteria, special exception criteria. I'll make sure prior to the pre-submission conference, I'll send everybody the information so you know what to look at.
Exactly.
This is the first one. I'm getting inquiries. I'm getting,
We got
neighbors
lots of
raising
letters.
questions, lots of letters.
Lots of
So,
controversy.
we're gonna have to trudge through this, and, it's the first time we're getting one of these, so, it's new territory, and I anticipate people are gonna have, comments and things to say. But nevertheless, the town's opted, into the program, so
And this is within the zoning that as.
this is highway
as-
business
As
zone.
defined.
Highway business and shopping center,
Yeah.
basically.
And I don't know whether, we'll be able to find out, but I'd be curious, because this all relates to getting permits from the state, right? Like, everything I've read is that that's all still in flux, still,
Mhm.
going back and forth, so I think that would be something to try to understand
Yeah,
as this
and-
application goes.
100%, and one of the special exception criteria talks about the licensing. So that's why it's good for the pre-submission, because it's not a formal application, so if there's any questions or issues about that, we could certainly raise it, but that's one of them.
A CO is, one of those standards is that a CO is conditioned upon proof of licensure by
Okay.
somebody in the,
And it also gives this board an opportunity to review the legislation that the town adopted and make any recommendations that we might want to make. So we might want to have a special session on that and discuss.
So I'm recommending here, we have some scheduled for November, we only have one hearing in each of the months, so December 14th for the hearing on this one.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what's the date?
December 14th.
December 14th, it's right before.
Anthony, would there be, should we be looking at the entire Connor application for traffic along with this particular usage? And how do, and where, how do we do that?
So what I would say to that is, that's a very good inquiry and a very good question. And let me look into see how we get, because one of the things that's gonna come out of my review, since it's a special exception, is the SECRA review, which is
Yes.
gonna be part of a formal application.
Right,
And so let me think about that, how we could go about it. Your question's noted and I think appropriate to look at.
Yeah, because I think what I read in the paper was that they would actually move this cannabis retail store into that Connor, or, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
so
I think it's a good question, and certainly any project that I, reviewing, I'm aware of what has been proposed in terms of the subdivision and site plan, so I'll be sure to
Okay.
address
Right,
it. But
'cause-
I appreciate that,
right,
because,
because the out parcel, in a sense, is really part of the whole subdivision there in many ways, so you can't fragmented.
And like I said, we'll see come December 14th. A big part of this is for the board to ask the applicant and representative
Right,
questions.
and the public,
And the
to come.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, be interesting. So December 14th.
Okay, so pre-submission hearing, setting Bud Hampton for December 14th. A motion? Motion by
Second.
Gloria and second by Craig. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Number 15 is off the agenda.
Yep, and that one I met with the applicant's representative yesterday. They've got some changes to make to the plan.
Okay. 16, Bartlett Tree Experts. That's
Yeah, so
162 Sandy Hollow Road and 909 North Sea Road, North Sea.
So this is the Bartlett Tree Site, pre-existing non-conforming use. We deemed this incomplete some time ago. If you recall, they're proposing
A new barn in the back, right?
in the
Shed.
back here in the already,
Mhm.
some storage trailers or structures. We'll have to see. I think they're just sort of manufactured. They're relatively small. Literally just a few hundred square feet.
They're replacing something, aren't they?
Well, they're using it to storage, partly storage of chemicals, which are currently being stored outside.
Outside, yeah.
So they're doing to put in the building. We did deem it incomplete. The engineer took a review. They submitted new plans. I sent it to the engineer. The engineer came back, said everything was addressed. So in this case, I'm gonna recommend deeming the application complete, but waiving the hearing with a 30-day written comment period.
30-day, yeah.
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 Get this one done.
Any motion by Kate, second by Tom, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Number 19 is off the agenda,
Yep.
Old View Park, Part 4. Anthony is continuing to review that.
Yeah.
The site plan, number 23, National Golf Links of America, oh, no, that's Claire's, okay.
Number 20,
There were two Ocean View
yeah,
Parkway.
number 19 is off. I have 2 of Joe Gaz's. That one requires more looking on my part. And the next one is okay, actually, so. And I spoke to Jackie Fenlon on both of these, since she handled the prior review with the other right to build. So number 20, this is, again, you got Watermill Tower Road over here. Part of the development section of the map includes new access, new roads coming in here. In this particular property, it's CR 200, it's the Aquifer Protection Overlay District. The applicant is, Joe's coming for a right to build on this one. They're showing the road extensions, they're showing the easements that the board required as part of the open development section, which are all shown here, and all the development rights in my resolution, which I'll show you, have been submitted by Joe, so it's really just a right to build.
Is the access within the old file map?
Yes, that's part of the old file map development section, yeah, so it is within the map.
And how much of the development rights are coming from outside of the
So,
school
as
district?
it's 50%, which is what the
Our policy is.
town code allows for. I'll send this out. These development rights calculations are always tedious. I always tell the board this, I started calculating these for Joe Goslin when I was an intern at the Pine Barrens Commission. Apparently my internship is still happening, so I'm still calculating these.
But Dave Wilcox is a good.
He does, he
double.
looks at over everything.
Yeah.
Just so the board understands, because I don't like going through all these little calculations. Joe does 50% from within the school district, 50% without. Joe also, and it is in the chart here, you will see it says part of certificate, part of a certificate. Joe uses parts of certificates, and then he gets new certificates issued for whatever is left over. So I just, be aware that that's why it's written like that.
Right,
The other thing is, if you look at the bottom of page 2, where it says recorded the various documents, and I have them blanked out, that information has been submitted to the town attorney's office, it's been reviewed, but they haven't been filed yet. So I spoke to Jackie Fenlon today, and she said that's okay, just make them conditions of the approval that they have to be filed before the building permit. So if you look at where it says whereas 1, 2, and 3, those are gonna be included in the resolution as conditions to file those documents and submit them prior to submitting a building permit.
Okay, 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm just looking at the math here, and the Southampton School District, you're getting a certificate for 57,000 square feet. West Hampton Beach, you're at 100,000 square feet. That does not 50-50 to me. What am I missing?
I don't know yet.
the chart
Is
in
there
the
an-
middle of the page, top of the page.
The existing lot?
Is there an, the existing lot has an underlying,
Has an underlying amount of, the underlying lot has a square footage attached to it.
Okay,
There's a TDR allocation in the underlying lot.
Yeah, there is a TDR allocation for the underlying lot, technically speaking, that covers. I mean, if you want, I could certainly re-go through these with Dave Wilcox.
Get the proper percentages.
But I thought of this very carefully. Because if you look at, what was reduced, what was, do you want me to adjourn this and come back, Gloria?
Double check it with, did you double check it with Dave?
Not yet, because usually once I do it, Dave, like he did last time, always comes back and says, I have the original certificates, which is why you're not getting them today to sign until I
Okay.
get the okay from Dave.
well, I think maybe the answer is just the underlying lot that's in the Southampton School
You
District.
get that square.
What is that square footage?
Yeah, okay,
Then the math is gonna be obvious.
yeah.
Does it say it in the
Yeah, I'm
Third
looking to
whereas
see if
here?
it does.
It is,
40?
You need
42,000.
point
and-
211
860?
remaining to equal that .488.
And the resolved says 0.7857 is. No, that's the total.
That's the total of, yeah. So it looks like West Hampton Beach.
He's gonna vest the property with a
Right.
full development right
Yeah.
of 200,000 square feet.
yeah, 42,860 underlying for that, existing property.
So you add that
Yeah.
to the 157, 140, and put 200,000.
Yeah. that's
Yeah,
right.
so
Yeah.
that's what it's saying, in the third whereas identifies the 42,860, and then it's a deficit of 157,140, which is identified in the chart. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Does that line up for you, Glorian?
Here.
Okay.
You need
You
.2143
have.
for the underlying.
I think that does add up, actually.
Yeah.
If you look at the underlying plus
Plus what he's,
57, that they're bringing in from Southampton, right?
we can put it off.
Yeah.
Heading, okay.
100,000. It's half and half.
50/50,
It's 50.
50 West Hampton, 50,
50 West Hampton, 50 Southampton.
right, he's
When you
got,
take the 57,140 that he's transferring to plus
plus the
the
40
40,
to
42,860
Comes up to
is the math,
Yeah.
but where do I see the 42,860?
It's on the third whereas. On the first page.
contains.
Thank you, that's the piece, I've been trying to read this quickly, and
I know, it's
Right,
hard.
yeah.
there's too many numbers.
So it does add up to 50,
Yeah.
actually.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you for
there it is.
Yeah, I'm-
.2143 is there too.
I'm just nerdy when it comes to
No,
numbers.
that's good.
So I think maybe
was a
just
good
put that,
question.
I'll
include
put
that
it in
in the
there.
whereas,
I will.
which includes the 42,860 square feet of the existing
Yep. So-
inherent in the parcel, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll
Just
fix that. So
makes-
I,
Just makes it
Well, I think
clearer.
we do have it, right?
Well, I
Well,
I
but
think
it's
they
a
wanted,
separate
I would put a
word.
statement in there, maybe that, you know,
Oh, whether
the
there be
existing plus
resolved.
the transfer is equal to this amount,
Yes,
Yes.
equivalent to 50%.
yes,
perfect,
Right,
thank you.
right.
that's
Uh,
it.
plus the three filings that are gonna be conditions as well.
Right.
And then with that, I would recommend approval.
Anthony, what was the rationale for splitting up the West Hampton Beach development rights?
Two different certificates?
What's available?
Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
know, Joe will use
Yeah.
what he can and save what he can. You know, it may be, he has something else going on in, the town code allows for up to 50%.
Right.
So, you know, we never, you know, stray from that. But he might have some use for the rest of the development rights somewhere else.
He calls it a baby certificate.
That's what Jackie used to call them. Now that you said that, I'm gonna change it and we're just gonna call it a new certificate. I think that sounds better.
Yeah.
We'll call it a new certificate.
Is it printed on?
Reissued
Is
something.
it printed on a Post-it?
Exactly.
Okay, so you'll make those changes,
I'll make those
Anthony?
changes, then you can
Okay,
just, you can just approve it then with those changes.
okay. So motion to approve with the changes.
Motion.
Motion by Gloria, second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Out of curiosity, Anthony, the other application that's off the agenda, that's in the same development?
It is.
Okay.
But there's some things I spoke to Jackie about that.
Okay.
It doesn't, what Joe gave me doesn't match what I see on the improved development section,
Okay.
so, same, but same.
It is the
development.
same, it looked like it was, but,
Yeah, for sure.
I think you're done, Anthony.
I'm done.
So Claire has some applications off the agenda. So number 7 is off. 10 Marine. And
I only had two.
you only have.
Oh,
what was-
and then, sorry, the 23 National.
Number
Golf Links.
23, the
Sorry.
National Golf Links of America Turf Farm is off. Okay,
7, 10?
7 and
23, 7 and 23.
And the name of 7 is 10.
Oh,
That's why it's 10.
Yeah,
So
10.
10.
So
7,
Claire, do you
10's
want to do
Marina.
Lester Elliston first?
We could do that, but
Who's
if
waiting?
you don't, if you wanna jump to 24, we have Julie Green here, the historian, and I don't
Okay,
wanna
good.
waste her time with her. If you wanna come up,
Come, Julie.
she can explain this designation.
Of the West Hampton Beach Movie Theater.
No, this
Yeah.
is the,
Bridgehampton, Hamilton.
Bridgehampton.
Julie,
Julie, why don't you
come
sit
to the
down?
table.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
great.
This is creating a historic
Historic
district.
district, right. on
And
Main
Hamlet
Street.
of Bridgehampton.
These are the guidelines that I prepared
Nice.
for the board, and they're online, but
Nice to see them
this
on
helps.
paper.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm kind of filling in for Ed Wisnowski with the Landmarks and Historic District Board. But I prepared the guidelines, and they've been bandied about a bit, so we're working on these, on this Bridgehampton Historic District as the town's first district that we will be putting together. So I need to take these off so I can see. So good afternoon. So just a little background on history. So Bridgehampton was-
Julie, give us your name and
Oh,
association.
excuse me. Julie Green, I'm Southampton Town Historian.
Thank you.
So Bridgehampton was founded in 1656. So it's rich in history. It was an agrarian society, so beauty was abundant. But the Bull's Head Historic District will be focusing primarily on the architecture of the downtown Main Street area. So the appearance and the character of the downtown core. The core is appealing because it invites strolling along Main Street with a small town feel, where a number of the shops not only cater to everyday needs of residents, but there's a hardware store in the center of it, and many of these shops, plus a deli, restaurants, and its famous candy kitchen, luncheonette, are all owned by locals. Of particular historical importance at the eastern end of the gateway is the 1910 Founders Monument. On its small green at the center of the Bridgehampton-Sag Harbor Turnpike intersection, which is a historic intersection. This was the road leading from Ocean Beach to Sag Harbor, so this was in the whaling's days. This is a very important intersection for the town of Southampton. And then tucked away kind of a little bit to the south and west off of Main Street is the Triangular Commons. This was a village green that was used during militia training in the 1670s. And that's where the name the Bull's Head name comes from. By the early 1700s, the settlement had a school, businesses, a tavern, stagecoach stop, and residents were dotted along, mostly on the northern side of Main Street. By the time the railroad arrived in 1870, this was the branch terminus for 25 years. The train stopped in Bridgehampton. There was a little train called the Scoot that went into Sag Harbor. That has been, that was eliminated in the 1950s. But trains further east were not put in until 1895. So for quite a long time, Bridgehampton was it. And we'd like to think that a lot of times if you get off the train today, if people that got off in 1870s, 1880s would kind of recognize Main Street as it is still recognizable today. By the time, we're trying to keep that 18th century layout pattern, which still exists, and the charm of the hamlet's Main Street exists in its blending of the types of buildings from civic and religious to business. On the north side, west to Corwith Avenue, the layout makes use of uniform setbacks, wood and brick structures that are attached or semi-attached. Some historic buildings have been altered to varying degrees with built-out storefronts. Many of the structures on Main Street in Bridgehampton actually are still, the 19th century buildings are still there. They're just behind storefronts that have been bumped out to the sidewalks. So the structures are there. And you can see them looking up, at their roof lines. From the side, you can see quite a few windows that are historic in character. Also of note, Main Street itself was the scene of early fire department carnival road races, automobile races that occurred between 1914 and 1921. Start and finish line were right on Main Street in Bridgehampton. And a lot of those photographs of those races, you can see the buildings that still exist today. The most prominent structures downtown to date date to the middle of the 19th century and show the era's outstanding architecture, like the Federal-style Bridgehampton Museum. It's William Corwith's house. The Victorian 1876 Hampton Library, the Greek Revival Bridgehampton Inn, the Presbyterian and Methodist churches, on up to the 1923 Classic Revival-style Community House. These buildings have been well maintained, to say nothing of the recent restorations of the Bull's Head Inn, which is now the Topping Rose House, and the Nathaniel Rogers House by the CPF Fund here on the east end of Main Street. What makes Bridgehampton's downtown unusual and worth preserving is its varied but complementary uses, from restaurants and retail to a sizable civic center such as the Community House, to old churches with a cemetery dating to 1740 between them. Many of the commercial structures were once residents built in the local tradition using shingles and clapboarding. It is rare that such a coastal community on Long Island has so much of its architectural past, from Victorian back to Greek Revival and Federal, is still in existence. In recognizing the citizens' desire to protect these historical qualities that are the heritage of Bridgehampton, the design guidelines, which you all have for maintenance and rehabilitation and new construction, have been developed by the town's Historic Division, myself, and the Landmarks and Historic District Board. They are intended to assist property owners in maintaining, rehabilitating, repairing, and adding to the historic buildings while respecting the original significant character that exists today. They are generally written to allow for individual application and flexibility for owners while retaining the important architectural features of the buildings in question. And what makes building worthy of preservation is its placement on its lot and in the broader context of the street or area, the materials used, its architectural style, and how it has been altered over time. That way, there is a better chance of saving it. The goal here is to establish a historic district in Bridgehampton that will allow for more effective conservation and more desirable planning when changes need to be made.
Julie, what are the parameters of this main street?
So, there are 98 properties, and they run from the west, on the north side from the Bridgehampton, well, the former Bridgehampton National Bank, which is now Dime Bank, just east of Snake Hollow, all the way to the Topping Rose House on the,
Okay.
one Bridgehampton Sag Harbor
The
Turnpike.
east side of the turnpike.
Yeah, on the east side of the turnpike. And then to the south, starting with the Nathaniel Rogers House on the east side of Ocean Road, west to the,
Community house, right?
no, it's a little bit further than the community house, it goes all the way down there. Some of those structures are non-contributing, so past Citarella, west of Citarella, down to, and the name is just
Hildreth.
escaping, Hildreth, thank you.
Yeah. So it captures the old Dime Bank?
Yes,
It-
yes,
it's
it's considered, we're considering it a contributing structure because of the nature of its architecture. It lends itself to,
It
being
fits.
part, it fits.
Right.
It complements the rest, and, it's kind of a nice start. You know, the Methodist church that's down on the western end of Main Street actually was down on the eastern end of Main Street. And when, in 1842, when the big Presbyterian church was built right in the center of Main Street, the Methodists were not happy. And they moved their church to the western end so that they could be the first
First that you see.
first that you see when you enter Bridgehampton, so.
So there's no relationship between this Bridgehampton School District boundaries and these boundaries?
No, this is its own, yeah, we have a
Its own
kind
entity.
of, yeah, there are outlines in there of,
Yeah.
the layout
Right.
for the structure. We do go down, School Street, a little bit,
Past the community house, fire
yes.
department?
Just the community house, we don't include the fire department.
Okay,
But we include, on the east side of, School Street, a couple of things. We have the town owns a parking lot back in there. And then we go down, Ocean, encapsulating some of the structures that are just north of Hull Street. They are wonderful examples of small homes that were, part of the very early, triangular commons.
yeah. the
And then, of
common-
course, the church and the cemetery itself go south and east, and they come out on Ocean Road, so.
Right,
Julie, I just want to mention, I think you and I first started to work with each other a little bit.
Yeah.
When I was up working on the Bridgehampton Traffic Safety Project,
Uh-huh.
and you were working on putting up, I think, a historic monument.
Yes.
On Main Street.
Yes.
And, you know, and I think it grew from there to the Village Green, looking at that.
Mhm.
And I just want to say, while I worked many, many hours and walked up and down Main Street dozens of times for the traffic safety project part of it,
Right,
my appreciation for the historic nature of, you know, Bridgehampton really, you know, came forth. And I think the work that was done at the Nathaniel Rogers House,
Yeah.
we and then, working with the state DOT, we connected the monument with crosswalks so that people could actually get to it.
That's right.
Up until 2019 or 2020. The
you
monument was there, but you
Right.
couldn't get to it.
soul out on its little island, yeah, so,
we
yeah,
put
it's a
in
wonderful,
crosswalks, we put in an elevated sidewalk, and, you know, I went up and looked at that a number of times, and I'd encourage anybody, if you have a minute, to walk over there and take a look at that
Yeah,
monument.
yeah.
'Cause, you know,
The-
the great,
the monument, kind of the brainchild of the Presbyterian minister in 1910, was to honor, it's not a war memorial, although that's what it shows on its, each of its sides, but it's for the, to commemorate the founders and their descendants that served during those war campaigns. So that's its impetus. You know, originally it was focus was on the founders of Bridgehampton. And you all know that Bridgehampton is named for the bridge that links, so the settlements all the settlements were to the south.
Right.
So it was Mecox and Sagaponack, and the bridge was built in the 1680s, linking the two, thus giving the name Bridgehampton to the greater area. And the road that is now, you know, Montauk Highway, Main Street through Bridgehampton came in a little bit later. One of the first houses, which is very sad to me, that was torn down, was Wick's Tavern. That's at the site of a new building on the north side, of the corner of the Turnpike and Main Street, which we consider a contributing structure. Again, it's complementing the Nathaniel
That's-
Rogers house.
That's a doctor's office?
Yeah, New York Langone Hospital,
Right.
it's an
We
out.
worked hard to make it look that way.
Yes,
It
yes.
was originally going to be brick.
Yes. So there was a very old house there in 1686 that was built by John Wicks, and unfortunately it was taken down to make room for a gas station. So these things that evolve have not ruined the character of Bridgehampton, although if it continues to go in that way, we will lose the downtown. Because it's sad, it's become kind of, with the traffic and the congestion, it's become, just get me through
Yeah.
Right.
to East Hampton, get me through this light. And I think with the Nathaniel Rogers house, the town restoring that and putting all that effort and support into that home, I think we've got people slowing down, and the monument, and really kind of getting a good look
Appreciating it,
and
yeah.
appreciation for it.
So are there limitations to the owners of these properties as to what they can do?
There will be, the Landmarks and Historic District Board, anything that will be done to any of the structures. And we're talking the front facade. We're not talking about the backs of any of the buildings that are not visible from the street. We'll have certificate of appropriateness for anything that will be
Right.
done.
Has-
And this is just exterior.
Okay.
Julie,
Has there been-
oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, has there been any pushback from any of the current owners of these buildings?
A little bit. Yeah, I wouldn't say that, a lot of people have the idea that this is my property and you can't tell me, but I think we're educating people to understand what they can and cannot do. I think there are buildings and people and businesses that have already, Bridgehampton Inn for one, the Topping Rose, they have put all this effort to fulfill these historic parameters, and they want that to continue with their neighbors. So I think everybody's pretty much, there are enough people that want it to be the way it is, and keep it that way, and put some historic restrictions isn't a great word, but
But there's some
things.
benefits too,
There's a lot of benefits to it, yes. There's easements,
financial.
financial easements as well, yeah. So,
Kate?
yeah, I
you
think
have
it's
a question?
beautiful.
A question and
Yeah.
a comment. So, I don't know if you've been following East Hampton, Rowdy Hall has.
Yes,
this
the
whole
color of
issue.
Rowdy Hall.
Right, so I see you have material and texture. Do you
No
have
paint color.
Okay.
No, paint color
'cause I
isn't-
think that's where they're running up against an issue is like, well, what is the paint palette that you're looking to achieve? And they
Right.
just said, no, not black. So it puts,
There is no color.
okay.
We've decided that is something
It's up
that,
to the ARB or historic, who decides that, I guess?
I think if you're going to do anything to a historic structure, you would have to come before the Landmarks Board, but
Okay.
we would not be restricting in color. So
Okay.
if somebody wanted to
Got it.
paint their brick building,
Pink.
if Amon's Restaurant had wanted, yeah, I mean, we had Helen Ficalora's, she had pink shutters and pink trim, and that was not, that, we wouldn't have stopped that.
Okay.
Or that wouldn't be stopped by the Landmarks
So
Board.
about
And,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, second, I started my career on Bridgehampton Main Street, and I'm really pleased to see the work that you've done here. I spent a lot of time with Dick Hendrickson, and wrote up all his weather reports, and just
Yeah.
learned a lot just firsthand about the history of this area. So
Yeah.
I know it's probably been a lot of work, and I just wanted to publicly commend you for
Oh,
that, because
thank
it's really
you.
valuable. Great
It's
work.
kind of a labor of love. I worked in Bridgehampton. When I started my whole second career after 9/11 and moving out of the city, I started working. I went back to school and for an archival degree, and you become a librarian in the interim of all of that. So I worked at the Hampton Library. It was my first internship. And I just, Bridgehampton has just become one of those places where if you dig deep and look, that a lot of these are still the same families that have settled there in the 1670s. The people that settled Bridgehampton and Sagaponack, they're the grandsons of the founders of the town that lived here in the village. So it's a real, And a lot of those families are still there, and it's important, I think, that we start somewhere in the town. I mean, we have 7 districts that are in villages, outside of the town's jurisdiction, so, this is just following suit, and this would be the start of, there are other hamlets, Watermill, East Quogue, Hampton Bays, that we could work with these types of things. I think it's important, it's a sense of place, and that's really
Right.
important for people.
Great
It's
job.
great, it's wonderful,
you.
Julie, you're a treasure. I just wanted to bring up a zoning issue. This is VB, most of this area that's involved, it's village business.
Mhm.
And we at one point had an application to increase the size of the buildings by a large percentage of square footage.
Mm.
And we really, in VB, didn't have restrictions, and so we wanted to do some legislation. Claire, actually, you wrote up some legislation for us. We never pushed it through, but it would be, if you increase it more than 15,000 square feet, okay, that it's special exception.
Oh, 5,000 square feet.
Right,
It is actually for village business, it is a special exception after 5,000 square feet.
right.
Yes, so that is in place right now.
But was that the new stuff? I have to,
It's in place.
we
Do you
were,
wanna lower the threshold?
no, we want to make sure that we don't have a behemoth on Main Street,
Right.
a 2-story, 2.5-story building on top of an existing building. It was that corner property, right at the corner of Ocean and Lumber. And,
Okay.
well, let us look into
Yeah.
it. but,
Right.
There should be a marriage between the historic district and VB
Yes.
Right.
and
Yeah.
the hamlet of Bridgehampton.
Right, right. Yeah, the guidelines are all following the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and restoration work, and massing is one of those things.
Yeah,
We
so
wouldn't,
you had a
you
lot
wouldn't
of-
be able
You had
to,
a lot of yes and no.
yes,
Height and square footage.
yes,
So Claire,
you
maybe
wouldn't have a
we can-
tiny little and then a big, yeah.
Yeah, I'll take a peek at that.
Okay. Well, Juliet,
I mean, this would also require any new buildings to be built looking like they belonged in the 1800s.
Right, they would be required to fit, in with the other structures, and that's what that's where this is coming from, we're losing historic structures, and then we're getting these, which one of these
That-
doesn't belong kind of
Yes,
thing.
will become unnamed at the moment, but we know what we're talking
We don't
about.
know what we're talking about, and as a historian, progress has to be made, and that's how history is being made every day, so moving forward is fine, but sometimes when you lose things, you lose that history too. You could drive down the street and go, I don't remember what that was there on the corner, and
yeah.
it's a real
Oh,
shame,
gosh,
and then we lose that. I mean, we have Civil War veterans that lived in some of these homes. We have Revolutionary, so when those homes go or structures go, then we lose that history too, so.
Yeah.
Claire, from a process point of view, assuming this is gonna get approved, which I imagine it would, does that mean when we get an application, it goes to the Landmarks Board the same way as it goes to the Conservation Board or the town engineer or whoever it may
Right.
be, they're automatically then
Yep,
sent the
they would be
application?
given a referral, and anything in this district. So, at this rate, we have a threshold of 75 years old. We send it to them anyways, but in this case, it would be anything in this district. So there wouldn't, there'd be vacant piece of property, it would go to them.
And so we basically would not be seeing to approve anything without their input.
Oh, yeah, that would be. the
Same way that
requirement,
we.
yeah.
So there are
But
a
it
couple of
helps,
vacant parcels.
commercial, it helps because
Mhm.
they're getting that feedback immediately during the process. Rather than other people are gonna submit building permits and they're gonna be told, no, you probably should do this, So it does help,
So we
in
have
commercial projects.
2 active applications, or 1 active, 1 about to be active in this zone, so
Mhm.
we would have to refer it.
It's, in this case, we should refer it,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. I think we made that comment on this one, but we'll do it in this case.
Okay, so should I just do a resolution that says you fully support the adoption
Yes.
of the
so.
historic district?
Yes.
Okay,
And so-
after her wonderful presentation, I'll mention
After
that.
Julie.
And
We
a
can
great,
listen to
great
you
work on,
forever.
great work on the handout too, this is
Oh,
fantastic.
good, good.
Julie, I'm gonna give you this back.
Okay,
I mean, it's beautiful,
And
and I
it's- and it's
looked at
online
it,
if you-
but I don't,
you sewed it.
you might,
I want to keep it
I'm
as
gonna
a
keep mine.
Bridgehampton
Keep
I
native.
wanna keep one.
okay,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
And
can I have a
Kathleen, did you-
motion to support the Historic District in Bridgehampton? Motion by George, second by Tom, all in favor. Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a
Julie, may I
lovely
keep this?
afternoon. What's that?
Can I keep this?
Absolutely. It's yours. Good, thank you very much
You're
for
very
pushing
welcome.
me ahead.
No problem.
Bye.
We're gonna let her go next, and then I'll be back to do my.
Okay. So
Oh,
Teresa,
how we
we're
doing on
moving.
time? Okay, if there's not one.
Yeah, we have, yeah. So Teresa, we have number 1, 900 Silver Lane and 795 Ocean Road.
Thank you, I need you to. Hi, good
Hi,
afternoon.
Teresa.
So this application is for lot line modification to transfer a portion of the parcel known as 90 Silver to 795 Silver. And the resulting lots will look like this and will give the landlocked parcel known as 795 Silver access onto, 795 Ocean onto Silver Lane, and it'll give them frontage. We had a public hearing on this application, and there were no comments during the public hearing portion. The fire prevention office had made some recommendations, which are outlined on the report. And making sure that there is a proper street access, street signage for the properties, and fire hydrants are accessible. Engineering also recommended that utility easements be provided to 795 Ocean, as they appear to originate from 94 Silver Lane, as well as a driveway easement. 94 Silver Lane is this parcel right here. And then if they are planning on creating a driveway over their new access, the curb cut application should be made to highways, and then providing drainage for any impervious surfaces. So generally speaking, the planning division recommends that prior to final subdivision application, the wetlands boundary, which was last flagged in 2006, be updated and or verified where possible. Any copies of existing driveway easements should be included in the final application for existing driveway easements, particularly over these lots here, if there's any there. The one area of discussion is the parcels are located in the within 1.5 miles of the federally endangered northern long-eared bat summer occurrence, and it's just a note should be added to the file that says, or to the map that says that no tree clearing will occur during outside of December 1 and February 28th window. And if they do need to do that, they would need to get DEC approval prior to. I don't anticipate they're going to be doing any clearing, but it should just be noted that there's a window there. That was the one area of discussion if you wanted to have that added to the map. Again, consistent with the engineer's report, they recommend utility and driveway easements over 794 if they don't already have them, and then curb cut application and drainage structures.
I think that's it. Is someone representing you?
Brian Lacazio is representing them.
Is he?
Unfortunately, he is unlikely to be here today. He said he had some other other meetings that he had to be here, but he did send an email yesterday saying he found the
Okay.
report to be acceptable.
Are there any questions or discussions on this? Nope. If not, motion to approve the pre-application report on 90 Silver Lane and 795 Ocean LLC.
Motion.
Motion by Craig, second by Tom, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Okay, so the next application we're going to discuss is Charles LLC, which is number 9 on your agenda. So there was a pre-submission conference on the application on August 24th. The applicant wants to construct this 8,000 square foot, 1-story medical office and associated parking and landscaping on a parcel containing the existing diner and already containing an existing cross-access. You can see it here. It's already been provided from Flying Point Road to this parcel so that you have full cross-access. Okay. My dates are wrong. I have to update the date on the comments. But the Planning Division recommends that a new full site plan application be submitted inclusive of any engineering, elevation, landscape, and lighting plans. A stormwater pollution prevention plan should be submitted, and a traffic study should be submitted. We are recommending that, just to go back, the site already contains an existing use, restaurant use, and it does have some employee housing. So there's 84 parking stalls associated with the existing use, inclusive of the employee housing and the cross-access. It's a type 1 action, so secret will need to be completed prior to deeming the application complete. Again, the applicant is proposing an 8,000 square foot, 1-story building. We should discuss whether or not we want to have the footprint reduced and having it a 2-story structure in order to provide some flexibility in designing the parking and providing some landscape, parking islands, as well as the required truck loading stalls and parking aisles. The conceptual site plan notes that the restaurant currently contains 273 seats. However, the parking calculations note that the restaurant contains 225 seats. So you can see here, 273 here, and then 225. And then I spoke to the fire marshal, and they stated that there's an occupancy rating of 263 people, inclusive of the outdoor parking. So that just needs to be tidied up when they submit the final site plan application. And then they do need to provide off-street truck loading spaces for both the restaurant and the medical office use. Again, this is a heavily trafficked area, and you're adding 8,000 square feet of medical offices and 54 additional parking spaces. So a traffic study should be provided, which does traffic counts throughout the year rather than just in the summer, because there is an increase in traffic throughout the year now.
Teresa, could I just jump in there for a second?
Yeah.
Most traffic studies, I think it's understood, but I think we may want to mention that in addition to traffic counts, the accident history
Okay.
for that immediate area is provided. That's normally a 3-year accident recap.
Is that something that you'd like to see going forward on any requested traffic studies?
I think on, any of these busy roads, we should be looking not only at traffic counts, but we should be looking at accident histories too.
Okay. With respect to access, because they already do have cross-access that has been constructed and for which they are getting some credit for parking spaces, consideration should be, it should be discussed whether or not we want to have right-in, right-out access onto Montauk Highway. Again, you are providing, as shown on the aerial, a full cross-access from Flying Point Road to Montauk Highway. So it is going to be easy for someone to take Flying Point Road to make that left to go further west as needed. So that's something that you should discuss, whether or not that's something you want to see. Again, that may change the parking layout, and that may give them a little more flexibility, because you would possibly, what did I do? I closed it. So you could possibly close off one of these entrances or reconfigure one of these entrances and
Gain some parking.
gain some potential parking.
I think we also need to start looking at the traffic on Flying Point Road, because
Okay.
we're building an awful lot of stuff that we're saying that's the way to get out,
Right.
to go west.
Okay.
And then there's the application across the street. Remember, we were talking
Yes.
about left turns and how to get in and out of that
Mhm.
property.
But, you know, we've got,
BMW.
we've got two new medical buildings, and there's a third
And
something
Tesla,
going in,
too.
plus
Right, and
this.
Flying Point Road is sometimes used as a bypass, so I understand.
Yeah.
I will make sure to include that in the traffic study, recommendation.
I don't know I don't know how Flying Point Road is categorized, whether it's a feeder road, whether it's a secondary road, but
And-
it's a
I mean-
narrow road, and it's getting a tremendous amount of traffic because we're directing people out that way.
And most of the trade parade traffic is using it to go east.
Right,
To-
unfortunately, it's a bottleneck at this intersection right to the west of here.
Mhm.
And I'll admit that when I was doing field inspections for the Environment Division, I would use it to get around too.
Yep.
So,
So
yes, I
it's-
will make sure to include, traffic information for both Flying Point
Yeah,
and Montauk.
because we're assuming that's a good thing, good use, but I
Right.
think we may be overburdening it.
Where in the report talks about cross-access to the east and west, should we make it clear there that it does access Flying Point Road? You know, we don't really ever mention Flying Point Road in here, but that would be
But
our
we should.
understanding,
Right.
isn't
Yes,
it?
yeah.
The cross-access, including
Mhm.
to Flying Point Road.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll make that amendment. When they submit the final site plan application, they do need to include a landscape plan which provides parking islands. Ideally, they should include shade trees to prevent like heat islands, and to provide some thermal cooling. A stormwater pollution prevention plan also needs to be submitted to the town engineer. The applicant is proposing to install a new IA septic system in accordance with health department requirements. The site plan does need to show a dumpster and associated screening, and referrals will be made, and due to the scope of the project, a public hearing should be held.
I also think we need to include something about environmentally green, sustainable building.
Okay.
Anthony has a snippet of language that
We
been
like.
liking.
Okay.
And if we're gonna, I don't know if this is all paved already, but when we're talking about street trees, if there's any way to eliminate some of the paving so that they're,
You mean along Montauk Highway?
no, within the property
Right,
itself.
that's one of the recommendations on the
trees.
landscaping, a landscape plan which provides parking islands with shade trees.
But can we incorporate something from less paved that's part of being sustainable?
Do you wanna see if there's a possibility with respect to pervious paving? Is
Yeah,
that what you're looking?
or is there, as part of the landscaping, some way to have some of the potential water be directed through, like a swale kind of thing?
Okay,
I mean, all of this, we now know that we have to be much more careful how we build.
so under landscaping, with potential bioswales, and then under drainage and stormwater, a SWIP, with potential pervious pavers in accordance with the highway, the town
Yeah,
engineer.
yeah, I mean, it may not be doable, but it'd be great if we could at least start looking into that kind of stuff.
Okay,
We're also looking to install charging stations
Oh, yes.
in
that's
parking
correct.
lots, so you might want
So
to
that's
include that.
the
I
snippet
think
we
that's
have
part of the
from,
sustainability language that
Yeah.
we.
It
Yeah.
might well be,
Yeah.
yeah.
as part of that.
I mean, that cut and paste can go everywhere.
Okay.
Well, to Gloria's point, I mean, you're gonna make general comments on like the access, landscaping, drainage and SWIP and everything, but if we can add the bioswales comment isn't in that sustainability language, so
I don't think
it's
it
not.
is.
I
maybe,
don't think it is either.
maybe it goes into the sustainability
Yeah.
commentary,
Okay.
just to add
Yeah,
that piece,
I mean,
and then
we've got a pretty big parking lot here, but that's,
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's a lot of cars. So Carl, are you representing this? You want to come up? You have some questions?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
See you all. Carl Benacasa, 860 Montauk Highway, Watermill, New York, for the applicant. Teresa was kind enough to share this with us a few days ago. Just going through the list, I can tell you that we are supportive of the bulk of this report. He is very open to exploring reducing this footprint and investigating perhaps a two-story structure. As to the parking, he is allowed, under the lease, to remove 48 seats from the restaurant. So that would accommodate the reduced parking. So I know there was a question about that. That can lend some clarity, and we'll make sure that's more clear in the final application. Truck loading, there will be 2 truck loading zones, one for the restaurant and one for the medical offices. And we'll make sure the final application has that highlighted on it. The traffic study, we've undertaken a traffic study already in anticipation that you would be wanting this. It was done during the summer months. Do you think it's necessary to have it done fall and spring seasons as well, or just during the most heavily trafficked season? Because I think
Do you
if
know
it's,
when?
if,
Was it June, July, August?
August.
Okay.
Just August.
just
Well, that's
August.
the heaviest, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, part of, what can happen, and we've talked about this at a couple of other locations, is that the traffic gets so backed up that you don't get a true count. But they go out for like a week at a time, like a
But
week
you're-
or
yeah.
something,
Towards the, leading up to Labor Day weekend. I believe it ended just after Labor Day weekend, so the last 2 weeks of August.
Right.
But if it's backed up, wouldn't the count be higher then? So you'd be
Well, the
working
cars
off
aren't
of?
moving.
Yeah, the cars aren't moving, so it
you're not
doesn't, they
getting
don't count.
Oh,
a
I see.
free-flowing condition, which a lot of places we don't have
Right.
free-flowing conditions very often now anyways, but, I would say if, if you could do
Spring.
either a May or a, September or May or
To
an October,
October,
at
May
least
to October, 6
one of
months.
those two.
yeah, and if you do October with
The pumpkin.
Pumpkin
Oh,
World just
right,
east
right,
of there.
Right there, yeah, you're gonna
Yeah.
have that problem.
Well, October would, at this point, put us another year out, right? So if we do May, we can do this coming May.
Yeah, I think, again, I think May and October seem to be the most typical months.
All right, so then
I think if you could do May. And then that 3-year accident history, just to,
that won't be a
explain.
problem, sure.
And look
One
at-
of the things
And look at
we
Flying
may,
Point Road.
Flying Point Road.
and,
Saying, you want us to look at it, or have I looked at it?
Well,
Mm-hmm.
both.
right.
I have. I've
You know,
used it.
We all use
Critical-
it, that's the problem.
When you look at accident history in this kind of situation, similar ones is left turn accidents. It turns out and it turns in. Well, we may look and say, oh my God, there's never been a left turn out or a left turn in accident at this restaurant. Maybe
I
we're,
believe, I believe that we have an accident count along that stretch. I think
Right.
it's very accident prone,
right,
because
no,
we've had other traffic studies there.
I'm
and-
sure we will. When I say there may have been none, I
Yeah.
doubt that very much, but, but I think that's the point, is to look at the types of accidents that are happening and, are they turning out accidents? And yes, I have no doubt there's gonna be a significant number of
And if-
accidents along
I don't know that we can restrict entry and exits from the highway because we have such good cross-access. It's certainly worth considering, at least
Entrance and exits from the highway.
from the highway, yeah.
So what I would
Except
say,
for
that
right
moves
turn.
to our the next point. So we'll do the one we did and then a May analysis as well.
I think
Is that okay?
Yeah.
should be enough, yeah.
Okay. As for the access, I would just wait till we have more information from the traffic studies than taking a position as outlined in this report, because as you noted, we don't, and we'll start to look at the impacts of Flying Point Road. We don't know what those impacts are going to be. If you limit a left turn into the lot, I understand how intuitively that might relieve traffic congestion, but then you're forcing people to go all the way to Flying Point and wait at the light if they're trying to go
And I
in.
don't think there's a left turn signal
At that light, so then,
And that's, I have a friend who was in a very bad accident making that left.
yeah, so I don't know, so I understand why this recommendation was in there. I would say it simply be struck and replaced with language, as guided or informed by the traffic analysis to come, access shall be.
Maybe we can make a recommendation that there be a turning light at that light
I
of
don't-
Flying Point Road. You're saying there is,
But then, well, that
That
implicates
that's
things far
but it's
beyond
not them.
this.
I mean, it would be to the
Yes.
town, separate and apart.
That would be in the county, I
That's
think.
State, that's a
County.
state
County road.
signal.
Oh, it's a state
The
signal?
state would make that determination, that's a state signal.
So that's a,
So that's
So
pushing
that's-
out even,
yeah.
Right, we should have a
And left
roundabout
turn
there
signals
anyway.
have their own
Right,
pros
that's
and
the
cons.
That's not
roundabout.
about it. That's not a bad
Yes,
idea.
Is there-
around-
No, it's a roundabout.
Is there
It
even a
calls
left
for a
turn?
roundabout.
It's almost
Lane to
shaped
get-
like a
It's
roundabout.
almost shaped like a roundabout, yeah.
that's making very.
But from your plan, the building, the 8,000 square foot building snubs almost right up against the cross access, so it,
Well, he's fine
Teresa?
reducing that footprint.
he's gonna do that, okay,
Yeah, no, he was absolutely fine with that.
good.
Okay, so
I think he could do from a septic perspective, I think we can do up to 10,000 square feet, which would be a 5,000 square foot footprint.
Mhm.
Or we can keep it at 8 and make it a 4,000, but either way, you're almost reducing or reducing it in half.
Right, 'cause you need circulation around that,
Yeah.
that's a lot of cars.
There was absolutely no pushback on that.
Yeah,
So
okay,
he's
good,
very open to that.
good.
Just to clarify, so with respect to traffic, we're going to ask that they revise it to provide a 3-year accident history for both Flying Point and Montauk, and do additional traffic counts in the spring, preferably May, for both Montauk and Flying Point. And then with respect to the access, right-in, right-only access from Montauk Highway should be considered in accordance with a traffic study.
That's perfect.
Perfect,
Yeah.
perfect,
Well,
Teresa.
I mean, do we
Yeah.
even want to point to that? Limitations on access, I think, just without even acknowledging a direction you're going in.
Well, but you said that you wanted it hooked into the traffic study, the traffic report.
You'd like the reference to
You
right-ins
wanted
and
the
right-outs
reference-
just taken out. Traffic, turning movements.
Best
will be
practices for
agreed
access
upon
shall be considered by the traffic study.
After.
Right.
I don't want to limit it just to left turn in. I think we should look at it more globally.
And I think we're right in knowing that right in and right out instinctively is the least dangerous. But.
We don't
yeah,
know,
we
but
could
in
leave it
consideration of what that is over there, we don't even know if that's the case.
Right, that's why, yes, I think any final recommendation would depend on what
Yeah.
that study determines.
So have best practices for access shall be considered with the traffic study.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, and general traffic principles, if we want to get, because there are, generic studies that have done in lots of locations that will tell you rights in and rights out are better than, lefts and things like that, but yeah, we could soften them.
Anything else, Carl?
That was it. Otherwise we think it's a very good report.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So Teresa, you've got all those changes? Okay. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you so much.
I'll email you a revised.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So a motion to accept the revised pre-submission conference for Charos
Motion?
motion by Gloria, seconds by George, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Okay,
And then, the last thing that I have on is just the town board referral for a change in non-conforming use. I didn't pull this one up, hold on one second, let me see.
so this is number 25, 424 North Sea Road.
Yes, so the applicant is the property owner is currently occupied by a special trade contractor, which is an electrician. What they're trying to do now is have a new tenant in, which is a sign company.
He's already there and his signs are already up.
Yeah, right, to legalize it, but there's really no planning considerations. Traffic, parking's gonna be the same, it's special trade contractor to special trade contractor. So there's no real planning considerations at this moment.
So it's a change from one non-conforming use to another.
Correct.
Do we
Any-
need
any
any
issues?
change to the sign itself that needs any
Yeah.
kind of permit, or?
Any signage,
I'm not 100% sure about the signage, but
but it has to comply to the sign code?
Yeah, I'll make sure that that's included, that the town board. Okay?
Before we vote on it, are there mechanisms to change a non-conforming use to a conforming use? Once,
Hardly
Well,
ever.
transfer
I've
to
never
transfer.
seen it. It's usually one non-conforming use to the next.
What would be conforming? Residential?
Yes.
It's a horrible spot
It's
to
a
have a
horrible
house.
spot for,
Okay.
yeah.
It's conforming, you just do it, right?
yeah.
Right. If it was a conforming use that didn't require any changes in parking or sanitary, it would probably just be able to get a building permit or
Right.
a change in tenancy permit, right?
But their signs should be approved by
Yes,
the
by
sign
us.
god.
Well, we should see
I
that.
try to put a little levity into the meetings.
You're going to get the application for the change of use.
Okay.
Yeah, there has to be an application with you,
Okay.
because it's not just a simple change.
Not like this.
It's,
Yeah.
you would get the application.
Okay.
So,
So, motion?
Motion?
Motion by Gloria, second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
I'd still like to see conforming uses.
Well, you won't see them.
Would
though,
you
right?
really want to
Because
visit?
it's conforming.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to
We'd
come
never
in.
see them if they were
You'll see them
conforming.
maybe when you drive by.
In that particular
All right,
case, I
Claire,
think
we're up to you, and Claire has several applications that are off. One is number 710 Marine Inc. And
23.
number 23.
If it's okay with you, there's only 2 applicants here. Do you
Yep.
want to take them in their
Sure.
order, and then we'll go back and clean up?
Yeah,
So I have Verizon, which is number 6.
okay, Verizon Wireless, 665 Bridgehampton Sag Harbor Turnpike. This is the replacement of the old one, yeah.
Yep.
Mhm. Are you representing them? Yeah, you can come up.
And I've got a report to go over.
Okay.
The deadline's not till the 26th. However, if you don't have any issues, you want to adopt it, or else we can do it on the
Okay.
26th. So either way.
So Claire will go through the report.
Okay, great.
And,
Do you need one, Claire, or you have one?
No, I got one, thank you. This is a couple copies of the site plan for you to share.
I'll share with Gloria.
It's a biggie.
There we go. So essentially, this is the Verizon, sites for, Verizon, not wireless, telephone company, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's this site, and on that site is a 95-foot tower existing. It's like a wooden tower, has communications on it, and their proposal is to change it to, a monopole, which would be, again, 95 feet. What's triggering your review with special exception is that the structure will be wider. It's going to be wider at the base of it, and then, so that's your review of it. So, I have the report, so I'm just gonna go through it. It's on a 58,600 square foot parcel. It's improved with a utility building located in the CR 200 zoning district and the Aquifer Protection Overlay District at 1665 Bridgehampton Sag Harbor Turnpike in Bridgehampton. A pre-submission conference was held September 14th, and no comments were heard during the conference, nor during the provided 30-day written comment period. This will be a full site plan special exception application with petition, and the site plan including engineering information to be submitted. So zoning wise, it does not meet the setbacks to the property lines nor towards the person's house. I'm just gonna put that in as it, so you can see that on the GIS. I'm gonna put the address in so you can see the house, but this would be, the same setback would be maintained. So they're maintaining, this is the house here. They're maintaining the same setback to this house, and that's delineated on the site plan. What I asked also is that the other two close houses, I think they meet it, but I just want to make sure the radius is shown.
For a fall
on the site.
zone.
For the fall zone, exactly. And because they're maintaining a pre-existing setback, then that's no variances are required, even though it doesn't meet the standards for the project. So preliminary planning issues on this, unless you have some questions, I'll just go through those, is that it is permitted as a continuation of a non-conforming setback with no increase to the degree of nonconformity. Special exception application to be made. The Aquifer Protection Overlay District, they're not saying any clearing is happening, but I want the clearing to be shown clearly on the property, on the plan. And any clearing would have to conform with the 50% on the property, which looks like they're conforming at this point, just anecdotally looking at the aerial. It is an unlisted action, so secret would have to be completed prior to the site plan being deemed complete. Referrals and a public hearing would be required.
I would think that what they take down needs to be revegetated in the APOD.
Okay. There's no proposal to clear anything right now, but you could definitely.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you take down, I'm sure you have a slab underneath it and.
Yeah, there's an existing compound area right now,
Okay,
so we're
just give
going
us
in
your
the
name.
same spot.
Give us
I'm
your-
sorry, Eric Hellman, a Model Law Group,
Okay,
666 Old Country Road, Garden City.
so go ahead, you were telling us. the
Yeah,
base.
there's an existing compound area that's about 450 square feet. We're going in the same location. So there'll be about roughly 5 feet of clearing around the perimeter of the compound area, and that's the extent of it.
Okay, and the old, am I missing it? The old tower that's,
Yeah.
you're doing away with?
Yeah, that's gonna be removed. That's 95 feet, and the replacement monopole is going in the same location at the same height.
Same location?
Same location,
Okay,
yes.
so, okay.
It's just, it's larger in
You're
diameter
swapping
though.
it out.
Yeah.
How much larger?
The existing monopole is about 16 inches in diameter. The replacement, at the top, it'll be about 48 inches, and then it tapers down to roughly 60 inches. But it's located in a very heavily wooded area. So that goes, the tree line's about 70 feet in that area, so that will help with screening.
Okay. Good. Any other questions on this?
Just to reiterate, the revegetation plan that should be included based on what clearing needs to be done to install, remove the old and install the new, and then revegetate. I think
Understood.
That's important. Thanks.
Any other questions? No, Claire, any other comments from you?
No, it's pretty.
So I think we can
straightforward.
adopt this.
Yeah, I think
All
you're
right.
good.
Okay. So motion to adopt the pre-submission report for Verizon by George, second
Oh, I'm
by,
sorry, we can't. Don't adopt. We have 2 more days left in our comment period, so it has to be adopted.
oh,
Oh,
okay, okay.
Have we
Yes.
received any comments?
Not to date, but
But we could.
technical, it's Monday, so,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
You might be the last drag by, so
Oh,
include it
okay.
if it comes in.
Sorry about that.
No, no,
Thank you.
But he doesn't have to come if there's no change.
Right, then, no, you can,
So it'll be adopted at the next meeting, most likely.
Understood. Thank you very much.
thank you. And then other applicant who is here?
So, I have a ZBA on for Loaves and Fishes, which you discussed preliminarily at the last meeting, but, we were running out of time. So, I bumped it to this meeting. I wrote a couple of your comments saying.
Where is
I'm gonna
this
give you-
from?
It's in the, I'm gonna give it to you again. It was in the packet.
21? Oh, yeah, number 21, Loaves and Fishes, 2252 Montauk Highway. I'm doing that for your best. Give me the address.
Thank you. My little crib notes work really well.
Good. When you do the minutes, you mean?
I do this for today's meeting, too.
I see.
And I have little notes,
Yeah, it's good. Good.
and I don't keep
I only have
trees.
2 copies of this plan. Should I just lay it out in the middle? Does that make sense, or one end, or the other
Middle's
end?
Well, we know it.
This is the plan. You saw this as a preliminary, pre-submission reports. It has changed where some of this parking has been removed and put into this location, so the access road has been moved closer to Butter Lane in that location. But,
And
I'll
is
put
there-
one in front of
Is
both
there
uses.
more vegetation on the north side? 'Cause what did we
Buffers,
have?
we were
There
talking
was
about
always gonna
buffers.
be buffers and vegetation, and
Because
that's.
that's what that neighbor was
Yeah.
concerned.
Mhm. So, copies for you. So based on, what I did is just update the beginning of this as your ZBA referral. So I referenced that there's been a revised map to the ZBA, and the variances that are required. And I'm just including your recommendations up front, so the zoning board doesn't have to read the whole report. And, so you said cross access shall be maintained between the 2 parcels. At the time of the last meeting, you said an increased setback between the parking and the north property line shall be investigated. So I included those words in there. And do you also want me to say an extensive buffer with vegetation to be established? Okay. That's fine. These are all my files.
Sorry, I thought he may have
Do not
left
touch
that.
my files. Any other comments that I should include?
Just trying to think.
Can I see the report? I haven't seen it.
Claire, do you have a?
Carl, I have one here if you want.
So I'm not entirely clear, Carl, as to people exiting this lot, the circulation. If you could just go through that,
Sure.
maybe we can, yeah. Yeah,
That's
just
the 2 L.
trace the circulation, because you've got restaurant, cars, and you've got these 2 offices, and then a residence. Can you just hold it
So
up
a
for us?
lot of this parking here is actually on the adjoining parcel,
The restaurant.
the restaurant parcel. This is the parcel we're talking about, and it's these 7 spots, I guess there's 27 spots back here, and then the remainder of the required on-site parking is here. Cars would come in this way and out that way, and they could also come in this way. This would be a one-way. So there would be no egress onto Montauk Highway, which was a concern.
So it's a right turn in.
It would be a right turn in,
And a left turn in.
I guess a
Right.
left turn in, but of course, we can talk about that as we go through the planning process. And then you could right or left turn in off of Butter and ingress and egress off of Butter.
There's no-
Originally,
I'm sorry.
no.
Go ahead.
Originally, this access point was up to the north.
Yes.
Which was close to this neighbor, who is the adjacent neighbor. They have withdrawn their opposition. We have worked with them on buffering.
Okay.
This neighbor, Mr. Levine, and I think council's here for him today, is still in opposition. We have proposed a buffering along this row here up, if you recall, well, let's take it back. We're talking about access, egress and ingress here. This was moved away to the center area, closer to the commercial portion, still about 200 and some odd feet from the intersection with Montauk Highway. But this is now just a garden, an open spaced garden. What was originally approved, and when I say originally approved, this was, as many may recall, this was a site plan approved about 2 years ago with relief from the zoning board. There's actually 21 spaces along this. We've reduced that to 7. 21 spaces and an access point along this. We had zoning board relief for that. And
Because of the setback?
because there's the transition yard setback.
What is it now?
It's 15 feet.
And
What's required?
30?
50,
50.
significant. But the relief was granted for that last one. And we are coming in now with a reduced from 21, spanning essentially the entire northern border, to 7,
And where'd you put those parking spaces? Internally there?
internally right here. So it's about 15 feet from the line, the property line. Then you have about a 20-foot flagpole that is this neighbor who is supportive. And then Mr. Levine's property is here.
Where is the house?
The house is here.
Okay.
That's the single-family residence. These are gonna be the retail/office units.
What is there a little object between the house and the
This is
parking
just a
lot?
walking path and a garden.
And then the house?
I mean, there's no relief or.
And then the house?
And then the house.
Then what? What is that?
Then this is a covered porch, then a parking area, egress, ingress, parking area, and the two,
Is that sufficient width for the egress to go out onto Butter Lane?
this, yes.
Yes.
These all meet with planning principles and codes and the like. The relief we needed is a setback relief for this structure, similar to what was already granted for the last one. Setback relief for this structure, the same as what was previously granted for the last iteration when this was a restaurant.
What is the setback?
It has to be 25. At its minimum, it's 12 here. This has to be 30. It's 27. This has to be 30 and it's 26. They're all actually minor variances, except for the transition yard relief. The other thing is the lot coverage is reduced. We were seeking around 22% lot coverage. Now it's just over 20%, like 20.4 or 5%. So this proposal and the variance that you're considering is far reduced in scope, both by lot coverage and by the amount of relief required for these parking spaces. Now, the amount is the same, the actual dimensional amount, we wanted 15 before, we're asking for 15 now, but for 7 spaces as opposed to 21. We have proposed buffering that the neighbor does not think is sufficient for his concerns, this neighbor. But along the parking area, 2 rows of 8x10 evergreens, and then once the parking stops, a single row of 8x10 evergreens, retention of an existing hedge, and sound audio reducing fencing. Mitigation.
The hedge goes along that whole back side.
The entire
Oh,
line here.
yeah.
Along with here, along the parking spaces, which was the concern, these 7 spaces.
Right.
That's his concern. 2 rows of 8x10 green giants. And again, I think it's important, the zoning board is considering this in the context of the previous relief granted on site, which again,
We don't
was
want them to
greater.
do that. This is a new application.
but they are guided by due process and principles of.
But Carl, we had several conversations about this is a new application, so if you're trying to sell it to them as if it's just an amended application, it isn't.
No, it's not.
Okay,
We did submit it originally as a modification to the zoning board.
all right.
They said, we want this as a new application. We
okay.
filed it as a new one. So they're
Okay.
considering as a new one.
Okay,
And that, all I'm saying is they're guided not by the previous decision on this site plan, but by the previous precedent they set, as if it was a different variance. But they're still guided by precedent
I
in
understand.
the
I
variances they're
understand.
granting.
How does this house get out of there? How do those people get out?
What do you mean, how do
The
they?
residents?
There's egress here and in the front. You mean,
And with their car, they just drive?
they're gonna have to park in the lots. The
So-
parking provided contemplates the parking required for that house.
And so they're going to have to get out the same way onto Butter Lane, right?
Yes. Oh, how do they get out of the
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
lot?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
they'll get onto Butter
Yeah.
Lane.
They're not getting their own parking space.
They're not, well, could they have reserved parking? I guess. Yeah, they could. Do you
They
want
won't
me to
have a
put their
separate-
names on it?
They won't have
We
a
can put
separate
their
driveway.
names.
If I were renting it, yes.
Okay.
How big is the
It's
house?
not a rental. It's actually not gonna be rented. It's gonna
How
be
many
used by
bedrooms?
the owner and her family. Sorry?
How many bedrooms? I mean,
6
oh,
bedrooms.
The house is gonna be used by the owner and
Her,
And
her
staff.
children are gonna live
Her
there.
children.
And then, one is managing the restaurant now, so this is kind of good.
Are they merging these properties?
No, There's no plan to merge them. But they're gonna, through various cross-access, they'll sort of operate as one unit.
Right, but I mean, she could sell it off, is what I'm saying. So in terms of looking down the pike, we have to have a cross-access agreement that survives.
An easement.
Oh,
An
we
easement.
absolutely will.
Yeah.
Yes, it's gonna be required.
Okay, so these are just footpaths to these two office buildings in the front, footpaths that people
This
walk
is
in?
sidewalk and footpaths, yeah.
Okay. And we have a lot of
here and here.
foliage there, landscaping?
There's a whole landscaping plan that will vet. Right now, you're just vetting
Just the
these
site.
variances.
Right.
But we have a landscaping plan that includes the buffering we mentioned here and a series of other plantings all along this, and that'll certainly be considered through the full site plan process.
What if any vegetation will satisfy that other homeowner?
So we've had extensive conversations with them. The buffering, no, it seems that no degree of buffering is going to get them on board. They want these parking spaces removed. We don't really have a place to put them that is ideal from either the use perspective or the safety perspective, and the zoning board has been clear that they're not, that
Well, you could do away
they
with.
don't want to give a parking variance, essentially.
You could do away with that round garden and put them,
Well, that would
just-
require the same relief, right?
no, then you'd be quite far away from the back.
Well, you need an access point here, so you'd have to make up for lost spots. And then you'd have a parking lot, I think, closer to the home.
Yes, to this house.
So
To the house on,
You know, when we go through the site plan process, certainly those
Mm-hmm.
concerns can be raised. We won't necessarily need relief for those, so I know that the goal is to keep this as much like a house as possible, and that's kind of how this was designed. You know, you don't, as much as this is a house in a sea of parking, this was designed to sort of mitigate the fact that this is a house in the sea of parking. And in line with previous reliefs granted on this site, and in fact, in a reduced way.
so we have residential, this is HB or VB?
HO.
HC.
Oh,
HC?
HO. HO. yes.
HO.
Yeah.
And so that residence is what, special exception or?
No, it's permitted,
It's permitted. No affordable housing in it at all?
not required.
Not
for that.
required.
That was the original plan,
Yeah.
With the restaurant.
the restaurant and the
Yeah.
affordable upstairs.
Right, so these are going
This
to
is,
be.
and this is a far reduced septic. We're actually, before we'd have to bring credits on, we're compliant with septic.
Yeah,
under
because
this.
that was the
Because
problem
of
with
the
the other
restaurant.
thing.
Because of the
Couldn't get
restaurant.
the health
Yeah.
department approval. So these are small buildings?
Well,
they-
without bringing on credits.
Ah.
That's why. Okay,
Now,
sorry.
the homeowner that, you said one homeowner is okay.
Yes. This homeowner here is okay. You know, through extended discussions, we have a signed agreement. We're going to put a specific buffering in here. We're gonna, and this will all come before you, but the type of lighting is gonna be, you know, certainly dark skies compliant, low lit lighting. There's gonna be a maintenance covenant to maintain that buffering in perpetuity. And as a result, their opposition to the variance was withdrawn.
Okay.
This is the adjoining neighbor. Now, if you recall, this neighbor, although proximity is close, because there's this
There's a driveway.
flagpole, they didn't have to be notified, if you remember. Now, we have been voluntarily notifying them because clearly they, you know, the goals of, the overarching goals of the code would think that someone like this should be notified, so
And-
we've been notifying them.
And they're upset about those 7 parking spaces.
These 7, that's
Where,
correct.
and where is their house, kind of?
Right there.
Here.
Okay.
There's a
'cause-
pool house here, and their house is here. There's a row of, there's an existing row of buffering here and a fence on both
okay.
sides.
Is the pool house, it's hard,
Sure.
yeah, it's,
Where's the fence?
I'm going off of but there's the house is up towards the front, the main dwelling.
okay, thank you.
Where
That's-
this is adjacent to the garden area. And then there's a pool house here.
And that gray thing, is that the pool?
No, that's just a
That's,
detail, right?
yeah, that's some detail.
Okay,
This isn't a survey of that yard.
Okay,
So we're just going on our surveyors.
okay.
But there is a pool somewhere between
Do
pool
we have an
house and
aerial
the.
of it? Yeah, you can see.
I
Yeah, you
do.
were right there.
I know, but let me go to the GIS, just 1 second. 2252, right? Because then you can zoom, you can see what the neighbors.
The stockade fences, Carl?
I've not, I believe so.
Solid?
Yes, they're solid, yes.
So there's a long flag to
There's a
get to a
pool and a
little
pool
house in the
house.
back, and then the immediate neighbor
Can you
who
see
has
that?
children and,
How
There's-
wide is
There's a
that
road,
flag?
there's a
Wide?
house, there's a driveway in between.
There's a driveway in between.
yes.
Okay.
And it looks like there's a hedge on both sides of that drive, hedge?
Yes,
Yeah.
hedge and fence on both sides. And
And
then
where's
the
the,
buffering we'll put on our side as well.
and where is the the 7 parking spaces? Claire, could you just show it?
And
show us on-
Roughly, they're
trees.
just
They're gonna be on this
Yeah.
side.
Right
yeah.
there.
probably, if you look where the pool house is, they actually start just to the left of the pool house and go
So
mostly
where the
two,
cursor is
two
right
or
now.
three of the sites are actually adjacent to, are beyond their property. 2 or 3 of the part, if you see,
Yeah.
2 or 3 of them are actually, this is his property line,
Okay.
2 or 3 are actually beyond it. So it's really 4.5.
Okay, so you basically, you've got somebody else's driveway that's buffered, and then there's a buffer on the property, Loaves and Fishes property.
We'll put,
Well,
yeah,
they'll
a
put a double
significant
row
Yeah.
of evergreen
double
giants
row
and a
of
fence.
green giants, a
Yeah.
fence and a hedge.
Have we talked about cross-access here?
Yes, so cross-access shall be maintained between the 2 properties, is what you had the comment. from
And
last
what about to the east?
time. And then proposed to the east.
And where did we propose it?
If that's a general cross-access from the past, because we don't know where the connection will be, so this site is that one with the small office in the front, if you remember, for the contractors. So most likely it'll be in this location,
The
Oh, yeah.
cross-access.
yeah.
Well, that's the
account
one with the
for-
little, that's a construction design company now.
Correct, right now it is, yeah.
With a very illegal sign.
That used to be, and then that would get you all the way to Newman Village, which was always the goal, right?
Yeah,
And then you have cross-access from Newman Village to Butter.
yeah.
Yeah, that would be good, yeah. There also, we just received yesterday, secret coordination from the zoning board of appeals. Do you want the lead agency? Okay.
Absolutely.
So what I'm gonna say is the cross-access shall be maintained between the 2 parcels and general cross-access to the east, right?
Yep.
And do you still wanna say the increased setback, should be investigated? That's up to you. Or do you wanna just say there should be an extensive buffer between the 2 properties?
I think so.
Okay. Okay,
An
and then-
extensive planted buffer you're talking
Yeah,
about. We'll make
vegetated-
that vegetative buffer.
Right.
Yeah.
Green.
Green,
Evergreen, yeah.
evergreen.
Yeah, because what was shown before is, bare trees in the winter.
And then I would say planning
And we
board
will
request
do
lead agency.
a maintenance covenant on that too.
Yeah,
Okay, so there'll be the
Good.
3 points for the ZBA referral.
mm-hmm.
What were they again, Claire? I'm sorry.
I'll write it up for you. But
Thanks.
general access shall be maintained between the 2 parcels and, cross-access, and then general to the east.
Okay.
An extensive buffer to be maintained between the parking and the north property line,
An extensive-
including evergreens.
An extensive
Vegetative.
evergreen buffer,
Evergreen, planted evergreen buffer.
and maybe a fence if they need it.
We're doing the fence, we're doing that, the hedge, whether you guys want it or
Hedge, the
not.
fence,
We're
and
gonna
the
do the fencing, the hedge, and the 2 evergreens.
Okay, so I'll put fencing in there too. And the planning board requests lead agency.
Yep,
Okay. For your consideration.
okay. So, we're gonna adopt this? Motion? Motion by Kate, second by Gloria, all in favor? Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you very much. Good to see you all.
Good to see you.
I'll see you tonight.
Oh, you're on tonight? Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Make sure you don't take Claire's files now.
Yeah, I know, don't go near them, don't even look.
Claire, 144 Mariner,
Yeah, we can do that.
to number 22.
So
What
this,
happened to Lester Elliston?
we can go back, if it's up to
Okay.
you, if you're right here, we can do this.
Go ahead.
So this one is, I'm gonna bring up the aerial on this one. It's at 1054 Montauk Highway. It's, used to be the Ethan Allen,
Oh, yes.
so they, are going to lease this to a vet. And with a vet requires a 50-foot setback from any property line. The building is about 37 feet from the front property
Mhm.
line, which is really not an impact. And it's about 12 feet, I think, and 10 feet from the east property line. But that's the setback to the commercial use to the north. So I don't think there's any planning
Mhm.
implications, but just have a little report here for you to consider.
So it's going to be a veterinarian?
A vet
Yeah.
use, yeah, pretty straightforward, I thought. The only thing is I say that I actually think it's minor, because there's commercial uses adjacent. Really, I think the purpose of that is so there's not a nuisance, you don't have dogs barking at night, and somebody's neighbor, that's why the 50 feet, I would think. But this seems like an appropriate use for the property.
And the property to the east, is that the car place?
The property to the east,
That's, Watson.
there is a black one or no? I don't know if the
No,
use
the
is
one
that.
on, the one on Montauk Highway.
The one in the, that's a landscape business.
I mean, it's all commercial.
Yeah,
Section.
it's creative landscaping or something?
Oh, yes,
This
creative,
one,
yes.
this one's creative landscaping, this is Riverhead Building Supply, and then this is some kind of industrial, commercial
Right.
use there. So I don't think there's any impact for them using the building.
What's behind the building?
This is special J contractor use, and this is a cell tower that you
Yeah,
approved,
right.
100-foot tall.
And so are there special requirements for a veterinarian facility?
There are actually on the back page. So the adjacent property shall be adequately protected from noise, odor, and unsightly appearance. We'll do this during your site plan special exception review. And here is the standard, all building structures and accessory use areas shall be 50 feet from any property line. And then C is, very specific to that uses.
Right,
I don't like to read that one.
no. So, and the parking is in the rear?
Yeah, and so there's no change in parking with the use, it's an office use. It was a retail use, so it would be the same parking for the
It's a
building.
very nice building. I wonder
Yeah.
if they're going to change it architecturally.
I don't know if there's any plan to do
Mhm.
that at
Okay.
this point, so. So I said it was minor in nature, I think the intention is to prevent the nuisance. Since it's commercial all around, I think the planning board has no issues, no planning issues. Does that sound fine?
Finds, I never like to say no planning issues. I mean, finds the property appropriate?
For the vet use?
Okay, so
I'm
motion
gonna
to,
say after a special exception review, obviously,
Yes.
pending a special exception review.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay,
okay, motion to adopt
Motion?
by
Second.
Gloria, second by Craig, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
okay, let's go back. Number 5, Lester Ellison. Now this one is,
Lester Ellison, 241 Norris.
again, this is just before the action deadline, and the action deadline's next meeting.
This is the one by the cemetery?
This is the one by the cemetery, yes? You all want your own plans? I've got lots.
We can share, if you have a lot.
I've got a lot.
I'll show it down.
Okay.
Show.
Cemetery is here. There's an existing house that's fallen down.
Yeah, so this is Norris Lane. It has an existing house on the property, and the proposal is for a 3-lot subdivision with 2 lots in the rear. It is in the New York State archaeologically sensitive area, so we'll do a phase 1B. It conforms with the CR 40 zoning district. What it doesn't conform to is in this zone, typically, you do 1.5 times the lot area for flag lots. The planning board has in the past
true.
waived that if they're large lots
That's
like
true.
this. It's not conducive to a planned residential development because it's not adjacent to any open space. I can show you on the aerial.
Claire, just one thing, in your discussion on park requirements,
Uh-huh.
you mentioned East Quad.
Oh.
I know you're probably missing East Quad, but
Yeah.
you know.
I'm a cut and paster kind of girl.
Bridgehampton.
Yes, I'm gonna put Bridgehampton in there. 241 Norris, I think. So this is the property. And then you can see that, as Jackie pointed out, the cemetery is to the south here. So it is a type 2 action, I'm sorry, on page 2. It doesn't warrant having a cluster or planned residential development because it's not adjacent to any open space or potential for open space. If clustered, the amount of open space achieved would be negligible. And 3, the site is currently developed with a single-family residence. So it's a minor review, 3 lots, that's what it is with no roads. Conformance with the comp plans, because it meets zoning, and it has to conform with the health department. The park fee would be, based upon assessment for the 2-lot area. In this case, it's not the flat fee. And the public hearing was held on August 24th, with no public comments, and, it was closed with a 10-day written comment period, and no public comments were received during the process.
How come, what's the assessment? How come it's not a flat fee?
Because over 2 lots is, it's 2 or
Assessment.
less is a flat fee.
Okay,
So if this was a vacant 2-lot subdivision, there would be 2,500 and 2,500, but
Right.
beyond that, when it goes
Assessed.
over 2 lots, it's
Okay.
assessed value.
because there's a falling down little house in the front, I guess they're going to remove that, right?
Probably in
Yeah.
the future, yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, I didn't attach the, I knew I forgot something.
Yep.
Which is the referrals, but I have them in, I have them pulled up, so let me just read them to you. This is from the fire marshal, August 24th. Proposed lots are accessible via Norris Lane with 2 flag lots, street addresses. Driveways shall comply, and they will require the installation of a fire hydrant. There's no fire hydrant except quite a bit distance, 1,500 feet to the south. So they will require that. The fire district actually said there was no recommendations or requests at this time.
There's a hydrant right on Narrow Lane.
I looked it up because I was interested myself, and you can put the fire hydrants
Mm.
on as a layer up here.
But it doesn't show, right?
It's, the nearest one that I see is to the south here, down here. So that's what they're talking about. There's
Nothing up there?
nothing up here.
Even though it indicates there is.
Yeah,
On the survey?
on the
Yeah.
survey. No, we're not showing it. So it's just a clarification. If there is one.
I'll drive by and look.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So no comments from the engineering division yet. Of course, there'll be a common driveway requirement, and no comments from conservation yet. Landmarks, I'll read those. They say the 3-lot subdivision is of no concern relative to historic preservation values. A preliminary review shows a single residence house with assessor
1840, evidence of historic real estate maps, architectural site, AKR survey suggests circa 1900 built. No demolition prospect indicates in referral information, and then just says the owner is Lester Elliston, from 1916 to 2023.
Well,
If he's that old, that's pretty old.
It's a very old,
but if that, I think what I'm hearing is that it's, the building is historic, so
Yeah.
so that should be in our notes.
Yes, the building is at least 1900, according to the, okay, good, let's put that as a,
So they're gonna have to fix the falling down house maybe.
I don't know, it's in very bad
Or
repair.
get permission to demolish it.
Yeah.
consider preservation. As the comments.
Refer to the historic district, yeah,
Refer to the historic district.
right.
Okay, and then I did have health department's comments. They have not received an application yet, and they'll be required, of course. So those are the referrals received to date. Do you wanna go for the recommendations? I think I have this report up
Okay.
here. So lots 2 and 3 shall share a common driveway. Do you think it makes sense to have, 3 common this other lot hook up to the common driveway?
Well, the way that the gravel driveway is shown here, it's crossing the common it's crossing one of the 2 flag lots. So,
They should all use it.
Okay. I'm gonna say 1, 2, and 3. And then I'll eliminate number 2, lot area on flag or less than 1.5 times lot area. So it is either do that or they'll propose a road, and I don't think that makes any sense here. So, planning boards will
Waive
grant
it.
a waiver, okay. So the New York State archaeological sensitive area, they'll require a phase 1B. Clearing for even future house may require New York State DEC approval due to the DEC documented summer occurrence of northern long-eared bats. So that may require a special incidental permit to cut trees outside of December 1st and February 28th. I'm gonna say the building, is historic from at least 1900 and referral for any activity shall be submitted to the landmarks board. Compliance with the Department of Fire Prevention comments with regard to driveway requirements and the new fire hydrants, if applicable,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm just gonna mention the plan indicates a fire.
Plan indicates a hydrant on Narrow Lane, corner of Narrow Lane.
And then compliance with any future requirements of the town engineer, final application, include health departments, and the final stage.
So the archaeological review is 1A and B. You have just 1B.
1A is that
Historic.
they do that research that says it's in
They're
a
gonna have to
historic
do-
district anyways, so it doesn't matter. The B is the investigation.
Right, okay.
You can adopt it now, or you can wait and see if there's any referrals gonna come back. You're outside the
How's the board feel? Wanna,
You said
pre-app
the
report.
comment.
It's a
spend on
pre-app
Monday.
report.
We can adopt it.
No, they're actually, in this case, we just haven't had all the referrals come back, which I like to
Oh, I
get
see.
them all back, from the conservation board or
do you wanna wait?
such. We can wait,
Okay.
and then
So no
we'll
action.
fill them in and just update the report.
So no
I
action.
think out of
I'll check the hydrant.
respect for the other boards, we should wait.
Yeah, exactly,
That's the right
yeah,
thing.
that was good. Sounds good to me, so no action, but it'll be ready for adoption for the next meeting. My next one is Aria T. This is the one, that
Number
was
10.
documented to review. I did update this a little bit, so I'll give you the freshest version. Oh. Do you wanna see if James has come up? Sure.
Sorry, what number?
thank you.
number 10.
This is the one, in Hampton Bays, which is the 3 buildings.
Oh, the
total
3
more than
buildings.
29,000 square feet, so they need a variance from 15,000 square feet.
Was this the one that Liz was representing? Yeah.
So, I think what your comments were that the appearance of the front building was a little bit, needed some context, some help, assistance.
She wanted a recommendation from us, and you said that what was sent was an example of an architectural building that was
It's the office building
office
next to
building.
King Cullen. It was Dr. Ariola's office building. It's very residential in
residential
appearance.
looking, right,
It's a big building. I think it's more than 5,000 square
Mhm,
feet, but it's got a nice residential.
right. Better,
Um,
better than that.
Right, so they could do something that, like, more of a colonial type of building or something.
So we should
that
make a
would be-
reference to that?
Yeah.
We do that?
I can do that.
And we need that green,
The
cut-
green statement, did I not put it in?
it's not,
Yes.
you just want to make me having to keep saying add the green.
Yes, I do.
Claire,
So
we also-
sustainability and green and sustainability.
Yes.
Yes.
I drove by there the other day and we had talked about, even though it's not required, to maintain some of the natural buffer along the roadside. And I
Yeah.
really think it makes sense, just looking at that corridor.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we
Yes,
can't
you know-
require it, but she seemed open to it when we discussed it.
Yes, you did say that. You know, for some reason, all my
Can-
notes.
Can you pull it up, Claire? You don't have your notes?
Expired. Yes, I can pull it up. Let me see. So this is the aerial. Do you want me to put it up on the GIS?
Sure.
2, 2.
And are we gonna break it a little bit just to discuss with Janice, because she has to go?
Yes, and
Okay.
when she comes up.
And then we'll come back
Yeah,
to
we'll
this.
we can definitely come back to this.
Yeah, she sent Kristen to get Janice.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was 4 o'clock, so. Oh, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so you want me, after the buffer, I'm gonna add, the natural vegetation in the front should be retained,
Yeah, if you
Next.
look at the Stop and Shop, kind of mimicking that would be nice, just to maintain the natural woodland along that corridor.
Yeah, we see.
And again, like with the Stop and Shop, when I brought it up, we talked about that's APOD, right? And that's
Yeah.
what the reason why that buffer was maintained, but it is a nice design element to soften the industrial uses along there.
So I'm gonna
Yeah.
say, look at the sites for 194
Commercial uses.
West Montauk Highway. Okay.
Mhm.
That's a nice term, soften. That corridor there, as you drive, it still has that nice sort of open feel to it until you come a little bit east into Hampton Bays. So I agree with Kate, 100% if we can, that would be fantastic.
Okay.
So Claire, my comment about this is that this is a very intensive use
Mm-hmm.
for this property. I mean, there are 3 buildings, it totals 29,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
When that was mentioned to the applicant said, well, we could subdivide it into 3 lots and still get the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we think about that? How do we deal with that?
Well, that's, I think, their argument to the zoning board of appeals, if they're gonna make that argument. I don't think you need to address that. You say the planning board does not support the variances. You could additional language that this is a very intense use of one piece of property.
10,000, 12,000, 7,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of square footage. I mean, do we have a site plan?
Yes. We do have a site plan.
And that would be a substantial variance above 15,000, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 15, be 14,000 square
almost
feet.
double.
Mhm.
Yes, almost double.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
right.
some kind of campus style, as you were saying, Jackie, would
Yeah.
work really nicely if you have that buffer along the road, so you're getting a curb cut in there. But from the roadside, it's really insulated, and then you get in there and you could keep some of the natural vegetation
Exactly.
that's in there by, having those land banks and
Having
the
the
parking
buildings,
and
right.
smaller buildings throughout. What does, the Hampton atrium look like from above, just to think about other sections of that
Yeah.
area?
Go back down, traveling through Hampton Bays.
No traffic.
So much easier. So the atrium has this advantage of having this, open
Right.
Corner,
space.
yeah.
Right.
So it's tucked away. And they have a buffer here before the
Mhm.
parking starts.
Right.
So it's a very functional place.
But they've got, what, 4 buildings?
Offices.
4 buildings on the same amount of, this is 3 acres.
Mhm.
I think that looks a lot bigger, no?
It's bigger.
This is a big piece of property, yeah.
Mhm.
And it's all condoed at this point. The common space is 4 acres, and then there's even additional space for
Yeah.
condos.
But that type of, I guess as an example,
Yeah.
that type of entry
Campus
and
style.
architecture to soften the commercial use in that area, I think is important.
So should I mention this one also?
I actually thought that was very industrial looking the one time I was in there.
Yeah, I mean, from the roadside, it's not, so if they were to still get more of a commercial industrial feeling on the inside, at least you could insulate it
Hide
from
it.
the road, so
Mhm.
that when you're driving through Hampton Bays, it's not just like, there was once woodland here and now it's, just an industrial park or something.
Yeah, that's, the design in there is very dated.
I mean, how much parking do those 3 buildings need? It seems like they're gonna pave everything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They'll have to clear cut it, you know.
Right.
So, this is our pre-submission conference report, so
Mhm.
do we want to say here that we don't support 29,000 square feet of 3 buildings on this on a 3-acre parcel?
Yeah, it's the last sentence of number 2. I can break it out to be number 3 or first sentence if you want, the first
First.
item.
It should be the first, I
Okay,
think.
and then I'm going to elaborate on that and say that the planning board finds it's an intensive use of the site, and that the variances requested are substantial.
Substantial, double,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
15,000 square feet. And they want 29, so it's just double.
So that's going to be number 1,
Yeah.
and then number 2 is just gonna talk about, the details of the size of the building.
Yeah. Should
And then
we-
I'm gonna mention,
Hi, Janice,
and
we're
add
almost
about your
ready.
natural vegetation buffer in the front shall be retained, similarly to, I'll refer to the McDonald's site and to the atrium.
Okay.
I think that's good. And then I'm gonna suggest that one site, 47 West Montauk
Right.
Ave, East
We're
Montauk Ave.
interested in a campus style,
design.
yeah, design.
Don't forget the
Green and
sustainability.
sustainability,
And I've got green sustainability.
right.
We should
Exactly.
push
Do you wanna
the
adopt
buffer
this
for
and then
everything
we'll go to
in
Janice, to plain discussion?
Did we talk about this enough? Yeah,
I think so.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
okay, so a motion to adopt it
Motion?
by Gloria, second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Thank you.
Okay, Janice,
Hi.
thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
Planning board discussion.
I didn't know what to call it, so.
No, yeah,
Discussion?
Well, we were talking at a recent agenda meeting and thought this is probably a good way to just keep
Yes.
the lines of communication open, where instead of just adopting blind resolutions and the town board may or may not have even known what the issue is, we have an active dialogue, a space on the agenda for you to say, can you look into this or that? And ideally, it would inform like a legislative agenda and it's not all over the map, so we can do this sort of
right,
in a way that's
you know, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that, isn't gonna work either. But if we
Systematically
can
can come- yeah,
systematically
yeah.
talk about, because of course, your role is not just to react to things, it's to look forward and say, how can we fit in
Mhm.
these goals in long range realm, and how can that synergize with
Right.
the
So we-
legislative body here,
Right,
which
so
is
we
the
have a
town
few
board.
things.
Sure.
Jan, how much of your time do we have?
As much time as you have. I think you have public hearings also.
Yeah, we
So-
have, right, but we want to.
I'm here.
Because we have about 3 things that are,
Yeah, the one was the APOD. I guess there's a couple things related to that, but you wanted the administrative process, right?
the APOD.
For the
The
revegetation.
revegetation,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
revegetation, we still want to do
That
it
is
as a
our
review.
radar.
Yeah,
So,
we've
so
talked
we
about
want a
that.
re-veg, site disturbance plan. So ultimately, see, the thing is this, we want people to come in with a site disturbance plan before they clear the property. That's the goal. And maybe that's a way to, you know, incentivize people, because it's an administrative process that's easier. And because I don't like to administratively sort of sanction violations. So when someone already does it, I think then they should come to you. But if they are being proactive and saying, here's how I want to clear my property, they haven't brought out the bulldozers, then we can go through an administrative. So I like to almost have it.
Except that we would like to get it off our agenda, because we have a lot
Entirely.
of them. Well, it takes up a lot of time, and we have very heavy agendas.
So we can try it like that. It's just that, you know, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because, well, you know, the penalties will be through, you know, typically they don't even make it through the justice court system. They just kind of come to you to
Yeah, with a re-veg plan.
re-veg it,
But,
you know.
But we also don't think the burden of what they have to do is not strong enough, because they're cutting down
Material.
old
Right.
woods, and they're putting in sticks.
Exactly. And ruining an entire habitat potentially.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
I think you had some other legislation you were thinking about, Janice, that maybe we could tie in here. What was that?
It was.
well, that was sort
Was
of
it-
an expansion of the clearing areas, which
Yeah.
we did not have any takers really at the town board level, like a full majority of. Maybe things will change in the
Maybe
next
they'll change.
legislative.
Expansion of areas where clearing restrictions would be implemented.
Yeah, and we had Marty Shea do a real comprehensive review of like what's left.
Yeah,
And, you know, because if you just blindly say like, oh, this whole area right here, you know, it doesn't make sense, because there's a lot of things that have already been cleared. So
right,
we do have that analysis, and maybe I can come back at a different session
yeah,
and show it to you.
Yeah,
So that may
that's good
inform
too.
that. But I agree, for now, we could just do, revegetation, site disturbance plans
Right. You don't
administratively.
have Jeff to give it to.
Don't worry, we'll find another
You'll
plan.
find
to give it to
somebody?
you. Yes.
Maybe Kristen.
Okay, so that's one.
So that's one, and the next one was,
I think
what?
energy overlay or
Oh, yeah,
related
that was a
to
good
the
idea.
bath, and then
Yeah,
I guess related to
Craig,
that.
why don't you speak to that?
Well, it just seems that we react to, you know, like the best situation, right? We're reacting always and trying to fit things into the application as opposed to being proactive and saying, hey, we have an overlay district, an energy overlay here, where we have targeted certain, you know, parcels or areas that we think would be appropriate for energy usage. And I know oftentimes it's targets of opportunity, right, with PSEG and connectivity and the like. But if we, you know, find some kind of consensus and some kind of model that where you can build it into the light industrial zones, it may give them more incentive to say, hey, guess what? If we put a little infrastructure work here, we could have an application probably go through a lot easier than these, you know, prolonged battles that we're seeing now.
Sure. So I don't know how many people read the actual secret behind the best stuff, but it was talking about, you know, how it was really context specific, and it was, there's opportunity areas and there were avoidance areas, and every area was to stand on its own merit, and you to be able to say, in the context of this area, this makes sense or doesn't make sense, and, you know, it has to be sized accordingly, et cetera. And obviously, that was a failure on our part for not, you know, being able to give you more tools to be able to say, arguably, how that would work. You know, it was sort of left to your discretion to some degree, and that was a mistake. So what we're trying to do now is work with Suffolk County, other East End towns, actually several other towns in Suffolk County are all facing the same problem. We all know we need renewable energy, and we know that battery storage stabilizes the grid and allows for the renewable energy to actually have a meaningful place in our energy consumption. But, you know, we heard everyone say we don't want it in residential areas, except for the fact that that's where they need it. So how does that work? I mean, I'm not necessarily an energy expert, so the county's gonna pull in the energy experts, PSEG, all the towns. We're gonna sort of form a cooperative way of looking at it and pull you all in too, because I think you have a place there, and mentioned it to them that it's very important that the boards have what they need to be able to hold something up against the criteria. The only concern is that when you say like opportunity area, which we did do that, we said these are opportunity areas, you're located near the grid, you're located blah blah blah, you know, you had these criteria in there. But then what came out of it, when someone came to propose something, no one liked. So like, you know, that's a problem,
Right.
because then
So
you can be the best opportunity in the whole world, and then when it finally filters down into a parcel, whoever lives next door to that parcel
Not gonna like it.
doesn't agree that it's a good parcel. So you can target, we tried to do a broad brush, equal playing field, not just saying only these two guys, one could do it, because then we're not being fair. Right, so it's a little tricky, but I agree with you that there should be more standards, more
A master
basis. And a lot of that master plan has to do with PSEG and LIPA's master plan. And, you
And
know.
how is that, what's happening with them, you know, given this?
Right, so we are looping them into the whole conversation. I think we need to loop you all in, and just sort of work out, you know, what are the standards? And it does hinge on what safety standards are, because no one was knowledgeable that these were going to be, you know, such a potential for fire. And we
Safety,
were
yeah.
assured by NYSERDA this was, you know, benign, no problem, you know, but they're
Yeah.
the energy resource, you know, they're the development agency.
I know, but New York State can
If you can't believe
make errors.
them, who can you believe? The research authority is the ones that we should not listen to. So anyway, I just think I agree with you is what I'm trying to say, and I do think we need some kind of, if not energy overlay, just a better sense of like where the electrons are coming from, where they're stored, how they go out, and how this all happens in a way that doesn't compromise anyone's
And the
safety.
technology's changing, you know? So that dovetails with what's happening with the moratorium. That was our question.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
so that's what I'm saying. So
Because
we're trying
wasn't
to.
there going to be, I know our recommendation was to issue an RFP for a consultant to help us. I don't know if that made the
Sure, I mean,
town
I've
board.
reached out to consultants. The RFP, you know, we can issue an RFP, no problem, but we were just trying to get like, you know, simple 3 quotes from 3 consultants instead of a whole RFP process. I mean, we could do that too.
For the moratorium.
For the moratorium, but in the meantime, what we have done is sort of join forces with Town of Huntington, Town of Riverhead, Southold, and through the county, because they offer planning services, have them as sort of a position where they can see the common threads between all of us and make a more unified code that we can all, you know, custom tailor to our circumstances, because we're not, you know, Southampton's not.
county.
But the county can act as sort of the integrating force there. So, and that is what we've been working on for now.
So we're not planning on issuing an RFP at this point?
I don't have an RFP prepared, but I have reached out to several consultants.
Okay, because again, we had wanted to be involved in any kind of, you know, putting the scope of work together or whatever, but if you're working with
Well-
people, I'm just,
Well, that's what we're working with the county to kind of create the scope, and I could bring you a draft scope from that working group that you can comment on, and, you know, make sure, and involving the county also will give us more leverage when we say, can we have an extension on our moratorium, because we're working with you, right?
we're 2 months
So-
into
You're
it.
already
We're 2 months into it, but it's not like we haven't, you know, been doing anything. I know it doesn't sound like it, because we're not running around saying everything, but I've been in the many, many meetings about what to do, how to
Well,
do
I'd like to
it.
see the scope, so
Yeah, we would
And,
too.
I mean, one of my initial questions when we really started getting into the application is, it seems like really little ones are in your house and then everything else,
Just saying, you know.
in terms of size of
Yeah, I mean,
battery
600
storage.
kilowatt and
Yeah, what-
above, yeah.
Was this initially envisaged, like, you know, utility scale battery storage? Because that 600 kilowatt seemed like something we're talking about today at the medical office
Yeah,
and behind a diner. Seems as, hey, that's perfect for putting in a battery storage unit to manage the energy. But you went from 600 kilowatts to, you know, 100 megawatts.
I mean, no one knew that someone was gonna, you know, of course,
And
we
that-
get caught out there if you don't put a limit on something, and that's our
And that's-
lesson
You
here.
get driven,
If
that's
you
right.
driven
just,
by the
you know,
applicant.
just had 600 and above, thinking like, oh, that's, because who knew someone was gonna ask for 100 megawatt? Well, we should have known. Well, we didn't realize that that kind of scale was even something someone was gonna propose. At the same time, what is 100 megawatts when you're talking about electrons? Like,
I've
it's-
asked the question of quite a few smart people, and I have not been able to get an answer that I understand.
Well, we'll get, like, we talked about that, you know, the vitamin example, like, there's a million whatever in a vitamin, IU of probiotic, let's say, and they're that big, so the density measurement is not the same as you're used to, because we're talking about energy, electrons. At the same time, of course, we don't wanna plan any kind of, like, bomb anywhere that's gonna go off and destroy everything, that was never the point. So we don't want, we heard loud and clear that people do not want megawatt scale in a residential area. Got it, but then what is the next tier
Yeah,
down?
that's
And
what I-
where does that cap go? So
But
that's
there's
what we
also-
So
need to
one of
know.
the suggestions, I think, to piggyback on what Craig was saying, sorry, is that, you know, so the two applications we had so far were cited because they were in close proximity to PSNG transfer station.
That's right.
We're saying, can we just go the other way around? Can we identify a half dozen sites based on previously disturbed sites, you know, in industrial zoning, places where there's not in close proximity, and if LIPA really wants to have these, you know, these battery storage facilities to support the grid, so they don't have to expand their generation and the grid, then maybe they invest the money into bringing a station closer to,
Right,
to the
exactly.
sites we've located.
They're
So
the-
we kind of flip-flop the way we
they're
think
the-
about it.
they're
Instead
the-
of, depending what LIPA has, we're saying, here's the site, you bring
us-
your stuff here so we can hook up.
That's what I was
Possibly, or,
saying,
or
it's-
what, when we did bring PSCG in and out and questioned them, like, how do you do this? And they said, you know, there has to be a whole interconnection agreement and process, so like, we kind of are, and I really appreciate the town of Huntington being like, well, why are we even letting anyone make an application until that agreement is in place?
Yes.
That's, you know,
The PSEG went out there and.
so, but, you know, I get the point that somebody's caught in the middle between like, well, I don't know if I wanna expend all this time and effort and money to get that interconnect agreement if the town's not gonna approve it. So,
It's
it's
chicken
a
and the
little
Yeah.
tricky there. So, you know, I would not wanna be in that position, but at the same time, there is a lot of, merit to pulling PSCG and LIPA into this and being like, what are you looking for? So we know what
Right.
people, you know, so we're not, this isn't the gold rush here, like, this shouldn't be speculative, it should be, we really know we need it
Right.
because this neighborhood and that and whatever is producing it. But we really like the idea of like a supermarket being able to have like battery backup so that the lights can stay on and the food could stay refrigerated and, you know,
But that's-
that's a good
that's
thing,
not a
that's a
100
much
megawatt.
smaller
Right,
scale.
and that's where the
Yeah.
600 kilowatt limit
Yeah.
made sense, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, it's a known fact that LIPA and PSEG have not invested in the east end of Long Island for years and years and years. And with this project, I think the town or even the county has an opportunity to, with strength, say, you know, you're going to be the carrier or the delivery system we need X, Y, Z. But that also means the town looking at available sites where we want to have the interconnection done, so that there's more direction from the town as opposed to being having the tail wag the dog.
Sure.
And look at, I mean, it used to be that water was the limiting resource, and now we're seeing, traffic flow and energy as limiting resources. Looking at overall the consumption and how, when you look at a profit and loss statement, you're not just looking at, what more you can expend, what more you can bring in, it's what you might be doing on curbing spending too. So I think, consideration should be put into what are the needs now, what could they be in the future, and what are other ways that we can do to, take off and curb the spend.
Right,
of
and
that
I wanna
energy
bring
too.
our climate action plan draft to you to review, and that has a lot of goals and objectives, in the energy sector that should be considered.
Yeah, and look at, if we're saying a simple way that we don't want these really large-scale energy storage banks, we can just say, okay, you're looking at a centralized system, could we decentralize it, right? With putting something in a grocery store, or a certain level of a size, square footage building has to also include a, battery storage bank or
Sure.
something like that.
So, yes, I love that, and I think that's important.
So
And I
then
mean,
we're
we're-
saying, fine, you can have a big building, but you're also providing a community benefit.
Well,
in
that's the
exchange.
idea between like big buildings having to account for their own energy, right, and
But-
offsetting it.
But we're telling them to use geothermal, and that's all electric.
Sure.
So-
We are telling them that? You
Well,
are?
that's,
Oh, sorry.
our code is basically saying that your HERS rating, as your house gets bigger, you have to have your house much more energy efficient, and those larger houses are being forced to use geothermal.
Well,
to-
more
to make-
solar than geothermal though,
Both.
right?
That's,
We can do some research on
Yeah.
that to see if that's true. But, yeah, so,
I mean, I'm looking for research now. There was a big article about what Vermont is doing in terms of battery storage, and they want to hook every household up to it and then
Yes.
control it. It's a very interesting system.
There-
I'll find it and send it to
there-
everybody.
I read.
Did you read
it's-
it?
Yes, there's, the utility wants to put batteries in everybody's house that they
Right.
will pay for and they will control,
Yeah,
so that.
yeah,
they-
it's like peak shaving, so that way.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And instead of building, they've done the P&L on it, and they said that will be cheaper than building infrastructure to
Infrastructure.
support undergrounding because of weather, and supporting the additional electricity needed for the community, that it's gonna be cheaper to put batteries in everybody's house.
How's that gonna go? When you don't want a battery in your house, what are you gonna do?
No,
Like, we're gonna.
well, there were some actual
no, having a
photographs. The
It
Tesla,
sounds well and good,
the
and then there's
Tesla
people
battery
who are
was in
gonna
the-
say, I don't
Yeah.
want a battery
I mean,
in
it's,
my
this
house."
utility has, I think, 277,000 homes, so it's not, it's small
Yeah.
compared to
Well,
Long
even
Island.
just like offsetting like thermal, like you're losing heat all the time, right? Like everything is always losing heat, and if you can somehow recapture all that heat, so first of all, greenhouse gas issue, second of all, thermal runaway, you end up in a bad situation with a dried out planet. So you may wanna figure out like how to capture heat and like that combined heat and power, or other sources of ways of reusing energy that otherwise is being wasted. It's
Well,
being wasted.
Build a much more energy efficient building to start with.
Sure, and of course, but you have a lot of stuff that's there already. So how do you, the new thing is easy, it's the older
Yeah.
that,
and there's a lot of that here.
there's a lot.
Our
So-
immediate challenge is to deal with the best system.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So, yeah, and so
What we're gonna do about that.
in the meantime, I mean, we kind of have a scope, right? We kind of know what the issues were from all the public testimony, and number one thing being safety. Where, it's easy to say
Location.
put it in over there in the industrial zones, but the problem is, there's not that many industrial zones.
but maybe enough to provide whatever it is that we need. I mean, I don't know what the need assessment is, which I would think is the baseline.
Right.
How much do we need and how much do we supply?
Well, if the town wants to be 100% renewable, we need a lot.
I don't know
Because
what a lot is, though.
Well, it's definitely not just to handle peak.
You know, I think it would be interesting for us to actually hear from PSEG,
Well,
right? And say, here's how we got to this point, to wanna,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
we
work with
had
these
a
best
few of their
companies.
reps
and-
come and talk to us,
Mhm.
and they were talking about like cost benefit analysis, but then they were saying, well, it's cheaper to use natural gas.
Mm.
But is that our objective? You know, there's the other side of this story is that
Right.
you don't wanna replace one fossil fuel for another.
Right.
You're trying to get to a renewable future
Yeah.
where the energy is coming from the sun
And the wind.
and the wind, the tides.
National
thermal
Grid is looking for a
runaway.
digester replacement that could go for food waste.
Who
and-
is?
And then generate natural gas, National Grid.
Here in the town?
Here, well, they were looking in Riverhead or somewhere on the east end, so, I mean, that's
Well,
an
they'll put it
interesting
at
thing
Epcal like
too.
everything
That's
else,
a
right?
big,
That's kind of like,
yeah, but, you know.
departure as well. We digress.
I agree, I
But,
can give
yeah.
you kind of a hashed out scope, and I welcome that input on that scope, so,
Okay, great.
we can keep moving forward
yeah,
and keep staying within our, at least get as much work as we can done during our moratorium period, so we can show
Yeah.
some real progress.
but you're gonna need an
Um,
extension, for sure. Yeah.
I
I
guess
think
the
that-
Moratoriums
the
are
long and
scope.
short of it is, you know, the PSCG, they're looking for a partnership with a municipality, right? So, or if we're saying we're a willing partner, but you have to bring something to the game.
Yeah,
And you can say, well, they could say, we have a short extension cord, so this makes sense for us. And we say, well, you may need a longer extension cord,
yeah.
right?
Right, except that further, you know, we're still kinda old school in the sense of like the further away, the more loss you have. So how do you, you know, make that, bridge that gap?
How do you
And
bridge
have
that?
somebody
I get
be
it.
researching new technology, because you read about new technology often, and,
Well, like I had said, I mean, this is a little totally left field, but I mean, here you have in one part of the town a giant hole that someone wants to fill in. Like, why don't we put one of these gravity batteries or some kind of water thing over there, mechanical, not chemical?
Sandland and Noyak.
You know, or like you have these sand mines, maybe there's some gravity situation, I don't know, I'm not the engineer here, but I
Yeah.
mean, I would love to not have chemical anything.
yeah,
We could get
Yeah.
away with it, but what does that
exactly. What does it mean? Yeah,
We have
And
invented a
practically, it's
perpetual
not at
motion
market
machine
yet.
yet, though, so.
And Department of Energy is also a partner in all this.
Right.
They're looking at all these things.
and the relationship between Southampton or the East End and PSEG and LIPA is changing based on Fred Thiel's proposals, so that's in the mix. I would think you can't ignore that.
Well, it's a public utility at some point, right? It'll go back to being a public utility with more accountability, which is great for all of us ratepayers in this Zone K who, you know, are paying
Mhm.
at least double the price of everyone else.
Yep, exactly.
And probably we paid for Shoreham like 10 times over.
Yeah.
I mean, we're always still paying
Well,
for it.
in the meantime, the town board is rolling out the CCA program, which should help to address some of
Yeah, the
these.
CCA,
so
we're going to
that
have a
ability to
workshop
buy in
on that
bulk.
in November.
That's great.
Lynn is going to give us that for
I mean, and we'll be the first town to do that.
I
first
mean,
time.
we've been a leader so far in all the renewable efforts,
Mm-hmm.
and being a climate smart community means that we're trying to figure out ways to keep the power on, even in the threat of a coastal event that
Right.
is
It's
inevitable.
Mhm.
It's inevitable.
Inevitable.
So-
Can you
Sure.
just make sure to include in the scope that the consultant proposes strategies for reducing consumption, including marketing to the public? You know?
Well, that was the idea
Some
behind
kind
like peak power and those things,
Education.
trying to get
Just like
people
more,
to shave that
more,
peak
more.
down. And the cost avoidance
It's crazy.
of, you know, not having all that new infrastructure to bring peaker plant fossil fuels this way. That was the other side of this, like wanting batteries and renewable energy, so we don't have, again, the ratepayers on the hook for millions and millions of dollars of infrastructure to
Right.
bring fossil fuels which
Yeah.
we don't even want.
Yeah.
So it's
So it's a
there, but it's
transition.
definitely interesting, and we're on the forefront of something good.
But it's in a transition stage, and people are always uncomfortable in a transition stage.
I think it's the fear of the unknown, but the good news is the board, that you were concerned, the town board took a pause, and everybody is looking very carefully at this.
Good.
At every level of government, so
Mhm.
that
Good.
we all can feel better about whatever the outcome is.
Good.
And it's not, oh, it's just the same exact thing. Obviously, no one wants anything that's not going to be the best thing.
I
Very
had,
productive.
I had
Anything
just
else?
one other thing to ask, because it's relevant. The legislation for marijuana, which the town board passed, we'd like to weigh in on, any kind of amendments or reviewing of it, because we're beginning to get applications now. And I don't know, for example, I know Kathleen spoke to us, and the state has a pretty hard lock on what you can do and what you can't do. And that's unfortunate, because we assumed that municipal rule would override state mandates, because it's our community. So I don't know if you can talk about that just a little bit, about where we are and how we can, as a planning board, participate in a referral. Is the town board
Well-
gonna look at it again or not?
The town, I can say
Kathleen.
I can say this, the town board will look at the special exception standards, because we will have to amend them, to be compliant with the changes that the state has made. The state put out conditional regs, they had a public comment period, and then they put out new regs. Again, a public comment period, that public comment period has ended, but we're waiting for the final regs to come. And there were not particularly substantive changes, in that they changed community facility to youth. Instead of calling it a community facility, they called it a youth, a government-sponsored youth facility or something like that. So we do have to go back to the town board to make those changes consistent with the state regs. So if at that time there are other changes that you might wanna see, we could also make those to the extent that they are not preempted by the state legislation.
And how do we handle a current application, though, if that's still in flux?
Well, I wouldn't say it's in flux, I mean,
I mean, it's still being amended, so that.
Well, what you have on the books right now is what you should abide by. And the change in the definition is more form over substance, would be my answer to that.
Yeah.
In terms of what the state has changed and what we have to fix.
Okay.
But for the most part, I think you'd still be guided by those. But it will give you an opportunity at that time, if you wanna suggest other changes, again, that aren't preempted, you could do so at that time.
Yeah, we're always sort of in the box of time, place, and manner.
Time, place, and manner is
Yeah.
basically,
You're in that box. So
Yeah.
the state said, we're gonna tell you where you can, your setbacks and things like that, but you can still say time, manner.
But to the extent that you're not making it unreasonably impractical for people to comply and have a successcul business.
Right, you can't be like, you can only operate from midnight to one AM.
Right.
And the
You
rest of
know,
the time
or
you
you
have to be
make
Never
the,
been
you
closed.
make
able
the
to-
setbacks, you are
Sounds like
preempted
the
on
right
setbacks.
hours.
Yeah.
You make the setbacks so difficult that there's no there's maybe 2 complying parcels in the entire town,
Yeah.
to take it to its ultimate conclusion, that's what you have to avoid. And because, this is the, legalization of these dispensaries, and so when they come to you, they're coming to you as a permitted use.
And so the changes, or the amendments that, because of the public hearings, I mean, I wasn't even aware of that, the state put this out, and it's a public comment. Will we know about those in time to review them and educate ourselves?
Review the state
Yeah,
regs?
yeah.
I can give you the state regs, it's very large, it's the entire, it's about 300 pages. But the ones that are specific to municipal rule, I could probably,
Are they
Make
incorporated
smaller.
into our legislation?
yes, we had to
Yeah,
mimic them for the
You
most
had
part.
to mimic it, that's
Yeah.
what you told us.
Yeah,
But there'll be some change in those, you're saying, some amendments?
A little bit, more form
More
over
form over
substance.
substance.
The name, how they're identifying something versus the definition attached to it.
Okay.
Like in ours, I think we said you can have a drive-through.
Correct.
And
We
the
said-
state may come out with final regulations that say you can,
Right.
and then we would have to change ours. Or they may have agreed with us because we said,
So we did
Yeah.
get a response, so they
Oh.
did do responses
Okay.
to, we did write a
Oh, you
letter on
did?
behalf of
Okay.
the town board that said we did not want to have a drive-through.
Right.
And there is almost like a secret document,
Yeah,
like the
response to
VEIS.
comments.
Okay, yeah, there's a
Mhm.
response to comments. And I found our comment in there. They don't name us, but I found the comment, and the response is, applicants should comply with local regulations as it relates to drive-throughs. So they're acknowing
Municipal
so you're
home
not
rule.
preempted.
able
So
to,
so
that
that's
we're
how
able
we
to
stand.
restrict
I
that, yeah.
imagine there
So
are
that's
age
good.
restrictions
That's an interesting
on
document.
customers, right?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
21 and over?
Yes,
I'm
that'd be
sure.
really
21.
interesting, yeah.
It's all, I have to say, it's all online, the MRTA website.
Mhm.
I can certainly forward everybody the link. It has all the proposed comments, it has the responses to comments.
Okay, good.
So if you
Good.
if you had time and you wanted to peruse that,
Right.
you can.
Yeah, so but for the most part, right now, when you get an application, like Kathleen
Mhm.
said, it's just based on the regs we have today
regs
until
we
they're
have.
changed.
Right.
Yeah, we had our first today.
Well,
Or
a
refill
public,
it.
a public hearing, set a public hearing.
Setting up a.
Yeah, I think the biggest
Oh, that's gonna
difficulty
be
or hurdle you'll probably face with public comments is just articulating that it is now a permitted use.
Right, well, the town opted in, so
Right.
instead of not opting in, but
Well, it's already being sold on the reservation.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna take a little bit of time for people to get used to the fact that it is a permitted use.
yes, you bet.
Janice, this is something small but worth mentioning if you're looking at code changes, the grade change for pyramid law issue, and I don't know if you could explain how that's not included right now, or if it is in some way touched on. 'Cause
It's-
I'm seeing, especially in my neighborhood, more than just one home where there's a grade, a natural grade, and then the person gets an administrative site plan review and changes the grade so that their house could be taller.
They don't get an administrative site plan
Or
review,
how
they
does
just
it-
come for a building permit.
just the building
And
permit.
that is something we've been trying to work through with the town engineer and also
Mhm.
the chief are both our floodplain managers.
Right.
So it affects flooding. It would be great if everyone changed their grade and we all went up. But we're all not going up, so some people going up and some people staying down is the problem. So, in as much
That's
as
how it's
that is
reviewed.
happening, I get a lot of complaints all the time about that, where people are saying, they dug out a basement, so then they could have 10-foot high, they brought the whole grade up. So we do have a little code committee, code enforcement. We have like a quarterly code meeting with like the town engineer and myself and the fire marshal and chief building inspector, and we all kind of meet about these, and that one's on our radar about how to, and in our next meeting coming up, we'll be talking about it. So to be continued, but yeah, it is an issue. I agree.
So we're gonna have regular touch base with Janice now on different things that we're seeing as we're seeing applications or in our neighborhoods and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, well, essentially, looking at code and some issues, whatever Janice can help us with,
Seeing
It's a
how we
dia-
have the
it's a
tools to do
dialogue.
our job.
I know, it's so
Exactly.
quiet, I'm
Planning.
just like listening.
It's a
This is
dialogue.
interesting.
Well,
So I
I mean,
just
it's
wanted
sort of
to
like
ask-
you can have that, all the policy and all that, but in the end, if it's not being implemented
That's right.
here, what's the
Mhm.
I
point?
have pages, Janice,
Yeah.
over the years, you know
Yeah,
that.
so
Yeah.
it's,
Is there
it's
any
not just the
appetite?
ideal, it's the application, right?
Is there any appetite for revising APOD so that it's a larger percentage that we can preserve in the APOD?
Well, I think in the APOD, just generally, that is a massive problem, because of it jumps so differently, when you get to a certain size parcel.
The
you can
percentages go
clear
way up.
so much more,
Yeah,
and that
Yeah.
doesn't really do much for habitat, you know what I mean? It's a little
Well,
wonky.
I think it does, because bigger parcels keep more habitat open.
That's, wait a minute, what am I thinking, that the bigger parcel clears more, the bigger
No, the
parcel
bigger
clears
parcel
less?
clears much less.
That's it,
Clears
and,
less.
but they wanna be able to clear more, cause they're
Yes.
like, I have this bigger parcel, it's not
Yes.
fair.
And then you
Yes.
get a re-veg plan,
So.
because they do it
that's-
anyway.
Well, most of
Yeah.
But I
our,
remember when it was first proposed by one of the town council people 3 years ago.
And like I said,
A lot of
Marty did an
pushback.
entire analysis, we have all that work done. He really spent a lot of time on it.
And what does Marty think? Does he,
Well, he thinks there's some definite areas that we
that we can,
it's not really APOD though, it's more like just habitat open space, woodland protection.
right,
More so than, you know, groundwater, although it has that added benefit.
yeah,
It's just like, these are our woodland habitats that we need to look at and protect and create
a
these
lot-
wildlife corridors and allow for succession and old growth things
Right.
to mature and sort of be stewards of that. How do you do that in a way that still gives somebody a reasonable use of their property?
I know.
yeah, I mean, a lot of the re-veg plans we're seeing are from developments where we saved a lot of unbuilt land and allowed smaller lots. And then the builders are not building houses that fit on the lots. They're building houses that people want, which are much bigger. And so so when they're putting in the infrastructure, they're physically not able to not cut everything down.
Yeah,
Well,
To
that's
get-
another thing that I uncovered, is that in the ARB review of things, substantial is 7,500 square feet or more. I was like, we should maybe make that like 4,000 square feet, like that's a
Yeah.
threshold in Secra.
yeah,
That's a better
Mhm.
threshold, because at 4,000 square feet, if you gotta, it's one thing, but if you're trying to jam in 7,500 square feet, maybe that, from a 1,200 square foot little house that was once there, maybe that's
which is the fact,
the review
Yeah.
issue that we're missing out on.
yeah,
You know
Good
what I mean?
point.
So it could just be the way that we've drawn lines
yes.
that are
Yeah, exactly.
arbitrary and need to go back and revisit them.
Or they're based on how it used to be, I mean, because the average house now is like 6,000 square feet. So they put it in a subdivision, I mean, there was one right in Bridgehampton, and every lot is overcleared, re-veg.
The one on
The-
the turnpike.
The contractors say,
Vineyard vines.
well, we can't maneuver, we can't put in a septic, we can't do this because the trees are in the way.
And
So
we-
everything gets cut down.
Well, that's like when you review it, then it really has to be, show me the line around the, 10 feet around the house that you need. You know, you can't show a plan with those vegetation and then expect to build a house. You've gotta go 10 feet around that house.
So in
you
a
know,
site
what
plan,
happens
is,
we don't ask for where the house is going to be. I always think it's a mistake. I
Well,
I
in
would like to
APOD
know
you
where the
can,
house is.
right?
Well, not with our subdivision, but what
But with
Dennis
building permit.
mentioned, yeah, that you could do, and this is one of my notes, is that hay bales installed for everybody who's in APOD. You don't get a building permit until you see your hay bales up. And if they're removed, then you get a
Or
separate.
clearing line, line of clearing,
Yeah,
staked out. first
You know,
time.
being
Yeah.
in this role now and seeing like the amount put on building inspectors and the amount of enforcement it's
A lot,
a big problem. So
Yeah.
like the more we can do upfront
yeah.
to ensure compliance, the better.
Give us the
Because after the
tools,
fact,
yeah.
We also
It's
have
very
the tools of the setbacks we can put on these lots. Maybe we should have bigger setbacks.
or in like the place of the subdivision, like Vineyard Vines, make them put a bigger open space and then don't have clearing restrictions. Because you want
Yeah.
the contiguous open space.
Yes, and we
What
got.
is it, what is it achieving having?
Yeah,
Well, we did
but-
get a lot of open space in that subdivision.
We
You
did.
did, but you could have gone for more. There's a provision in your code for subdivisions, is you can say, if you save 75%, you can clear all of your lots that you have. And maybe that's a tool that you
Yeah.
should use more often.
Yeah, we you know, you've found that like these conservation easements in people's backyard, like they always
Violate them.
you know, so like you sort of have to start saying these are not really on the table.
Not
These are
realistic.
not really gonna work. When someone shows you a
Yeah,
little perimeter buffer, it's, you know, a gesture, but it's not habitat.
Mhm.
It's not enough
Yeah.
to really count, you know, so you have
so
to
I
make a
didn't
decision
realize
about
that was a provision in the
Yeah,
code. That's
you can
interesting.
do that.
Yeah.
You can do
You
that.
did that with Lewis Road, believe it or not. because there was no way you were gonna
Mhm.
be able to,
On those 10,000
on
square
those
foot
little
lots,
lots, those
yeah.
little-
So
Mhm.
maybe anything less than an acre, you have to get more open space and you can provide it. Or else,
It's a solution.
yeah.
Can
Well,
we
it's
add
definitely like,
that?
well, this
You
calls
add
for
that
this
down?
tool,
Yeah,
let me take it
yeah.
out of my toolbox, and this
Yeah.
calls for that,
Yeah.
you
It
know,
just
and you
changes the
have
character
them
of the
at your
neighborhood also,
disposal.
though, you know, so that's a consideration too, is to maybe put something that layers over about like some mature, like street trees or something like that, because if you have this chunk of woodland and then like everything else is just bare.
Yeah, no,
Well,
and we're
people
not
will-
suggesting,
people
you have
will
to be in
landscape
the
their
context.
property.
People will keep or replan
Yeah.
to their own liking.
Right.
If
at the
you're
end
in
of
a
the day.
woodland setting, then that's
Mhm.
one way. If you're in a farmland situation, that's
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
way. So you really are, it's always in the, you have to always
Each
kind of be like,
taste.
where am I and what's
Yeah.
the context and what's the goals
Right.
here? Because they're not always the same across the board,
Right.
Yeah.
so.
This is good.
So I just
Thank
want to
you.
add that
Sure.
I'm going to, on my own time, do research on parking lot design. Because I think that our parking lots are stuck in the past. And I take pictures of parking lots wherever I go, and I just see how they're planted, how they're arranged. And they're smarter than what we have. So
Cool.
I'm going to just do a report, not tomorrow, till after the film festival, let's wait till after the film. But I really, because we're looking at parking lots all the time, and they're all below grade, or they're not thoughtful, they're not creative. We have to remind people to plant a tree every 20 spaces for shade, and a lot of the green direction is to make your parking lots shady, so that you don't have the heat that's coming up from
Yeah,
macadam,
Yeah.
and as we get warmer.
Remember, it was so revolutionary to put that walkway at Stop and Shop, like, that was such a
Oh, well,
big deal.
that's great, yeah.
But I mean, that
Yeah,
was
it
20
was-
years ago,
I
and
know.
that was a lot.
I know,
I don't
Janice.
think we did anything since, and we had to like write a law about it.
Right. No, go figure.
But I think you're right, you know,
Yeah.
the more green infrastructure, the more you can make it feel
And design, how you
like
design
wooded
it,
or
yeah.
cute.
And we're not
Southampton
taking into
did a great
consideration
job. They did.
these gigunda vehicles, they're landscaping vehicles that have both a horse trailer on the back, the size of a horse trailer, and a truck in the front. I mean, it's an enormous space. So a conventional parking space does not accommodate it. So we need to make sure that we leave enough in a parking area for those oversized vehicles, an oversized lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's just sort of staying current with how life is now, you know?
Sure.
Particularly out
And you can always
here.
have a little pamphlet or booklet done on best practices for parking lots. And just
Well, this
add
is
it
for
to your
us,
toolbox.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm saying you
yeah.
can have, well, your research, we can
Right.
hire some design professional to
Mhm.
make that look nice and
Yeah.
hand it out at planning, you
Yeah.
know, to say you're designing a parking lot, here's what the planning board wants to see.
We should do a course like that for the Suffolk County Planning Commission. Somebody should do a course on parking lots. Be very popular.
Mm-hmm.
The APA probably has something,
Yes,
right?
I'm sure they do.
Sure.
I can look that up.
The APA has a lot of courses too, if
Great,
you're still looking
great.
for more, there's a lot.
But we could just go on.
Okay.
Okay, thank you
Thank you.
so
Thanks,
much.
Nancy.
Thank you, Claire.
Before you go, I just want to mention, I have read the County Road 39 RFP, the corridor study that the county issued for engineering assistance, creative ideas, and I also read the addendum to it. I think the town is going to be underrepresented based on their meeting schedule that they put out for the, proposers, in terms of the number of meetings the town's gonna be invited to attend. And in the addendum, somebody obviously asked about future traffic, projections. And there, they talk about they can reach out to the, and I believe they mean they can reach out to the Town of Southampton Planning Department for that kind of assistance.
Sure.
My point being, I think that somewhere we need to have somebody be a point person working with the county and the town, or a county and the state, all along this process. And, obviously in terms of future growth projections or whatever it may be, but also in terms of some of their early meetings and plans and things like that. You know, state and county has set number of meetings, and then we're down with town, village,
Right.
other stakeholders. Well, since everything that's gonna be studied, and they're studying up, they're doing traffic counts on Noyak Road, they're doing traffic counts on Lumber Lane, they're gonna be doing traffic counts and projections all over the town of Southampton, east of the canal. I think we need to be very involved in that process.
Okay, sure, I'll
Could
reach
talk
out
to
to.
you more
I
about
nominate Tom Neely.
offline.
I second that.
I'll be there, you
engineer?
know,
Yeah,
and they should also, be aware of some of, the seeds project that of course is long
Absolutely.
dated, but the work that went into that, the County Road 39 roundabouts,
no doubt about it.
dust
I
some of
nominate
that
Claire.
off. I know you guys are so busy.
No, we'll reach out, we'll
I
try to
will,
make
I
sure we
will
have a.
try to sit in
place.
or something if I
Sure.
can help, but I
Great.
really think we have to make sure we're in the middle of this from right now to, and it's gonna be a long-term project, if you look at the scope of work, there's a lot involved. But I think we need to make sure we're in the middle of this and that it, gets done. We did a big plan in 2006 to 2009 for 39.
County Road
Yeah.
39 study.
Right. But,
No, it's
and
true.
those plans were shelved,
Shelved.
We have to make sure, whatever it may be on
We
39
do
or
have some
Montauk
good
Highway.
valuable input to give them,
Right.
so,
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're gonna ask us for it, so
okay,
we may
We'll
need to
talk
dust
to,
it off and say, remember this, remember
yeah.
that,
Sure.
So, anyway,
Thank
just
you.
like to, and I'd be glad to talk to you more about that. if you
that would be
want.
good.
Aren't
Okay,
you
very
glad you
good.
came?
Thanks, Janice. We have an active planning board.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you, Jan.
You did great.
Okay, Claire,
I have to,
we have to now, we have a little bit of time.
yeah, we have
12?
enough time, it's not, they're not difficult.
158 Brookhaven Avenue?
Yeah, so this is a site disturbance
Oh,
plan.
hi.
Surprise.
It's pretty straightforward. It's 3,000 square feet of revegetation. It's a small lot. It's only 15,000 square feet, and the plan looks good. So this is the plan to revegetate. It's on the edges, which are adjacent to other people's natural vegetation, so it should look pretty good.
How much were they over cleared?
They're over cleared to 94% of the property, and they're entitled to 75% clearing in total, and that would be 3,000 square feet in revegetation.
Let's see. And Marty saw the plan, Claire?
No, Marty does not review the plan, I do, because we have a list of
Yeah,
plantings that
that's-
are appropriate
Okay.
for that area, planters, so it's, it's pines and such. We reviewed it, actually, Jeff reviewed it, and this is a leftover.
Okay.
So I'm recommending.
He got really
you
good
approve-
at that.
Yeah, he got really good at it, exactly. So I'm recommending, to approve the revegetation plan with the typical conditions that it should be completed prior to the issuance of a CO, that they submit a final survey showing the, vegetation area, and this is eligible for an extension. It's only good for 1 year, but it's eligible for an extension, that's,
Okay, any questions? Motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by George, second by Tom, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Southampton Dog?
Yes.
We did that.
We did that, but we didn't set,
We were set the pre-submission conference for
Right.
this one. This is really cute, you guys can see
oh, this is different. This is the other,
Yeah.
not the other
This
dog.
is not the,
This is another dog.
This is the other one.
Oh, wait, there are a whole bunch here.
This is a
Yeah.
daycare center.
It's a daycare center. This is so cute.
and training
But
This
center.
is, made me happy.
So what was,
Like,
They
oh, this is
said
like
what a
Bridgehampton
change of
Historic
pace.
District.
what was the name of the other application?
144 Mariner, the one for the vet.
Yeah,
Yes.
the vet.
So this would be to, do a pre-submission,
Hotel for dogs.
conference, set it for November 9th for dog kennel. In the existing Kinko's
It was the Kinko's tile building. It hasn't been Kinko's for a bit.
Oh, on that corner?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm recommending November 9th for pre-submission. A good use in a LI 40 zoning
That
district.
building's been vacant.
Vacant for a long
Yeah,
time.
Kinko's has been in its new building for a bit, yeah.
Cool, I like this.
Are
Yeah.
they're just gonna doctor it up, right? They're not building.
No, they're just going to paint the building. It's a brightish green right now. I think they're gonna make it more of a subtle green, or they might do the reds. They gave a couple examples, but I thought it was a nice presentation material that we'll have for your
Right.
pre-submission conference.
And do they have,
for
they must have
November 9th.
outdoor space as well, right?
They're gonna have some outdoor space, yeah.
I see split rail fences.
Natural
Yes.
wood, split rail fences.
Oh, look at this, isn't this cute?
You can keep it if you want.
But like,
I know, the
those
interior.
other buildings are
No,
not
they're,
there.
they're his clients.
That's
They
very
do have
sweet.
boarding, so they have overnight.
Exactly.
Well, he will do well, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think they'll do fine, so.
Okay, so, motion to, set the pre-submission, so it's complete, right?
Yeah, they just need the plans. They, over and above what they needed, and setting it for November 9th.
Okay, motion?
Motion.
Motion by Gloria, and second by Kate, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
And my last one
Puch.
is 18,
Puccio,
Puccio
and that's an
laundromat.
extension until November 16th.
November 16th.
They're never gonna build that laundromat.
I mean, he's not been well. Do you wanna do it November 16th, or should we push it?
He says he's going to fire his surveyor if he doesn't respond by the end of the week, so.
Okay.
Consider him fired.
Oh, 16th.
Motion for the extension?
Motion.
Motion by George,
Second.
second by Craig,
So
all in
16th is the
favor.
date we leave,
Opposed? 6 in favor, 1
so-
absent.
I think we're,
Excellent.
I think we're done.
so that's instead of Thanksgiving, we have a November 16th versus Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so we
Right,
have the
yes.
dates. I had asked Kristen for the dates. We have a session, 2 sessions in November.
Yes.
The second one.
Only the first one has a public hearing.
Yes.
And those dates are November 9th
And 16th.
And the 16th.
and the 16th, no public hearing on the 16th. And in December, same situation,
That's dangerous.
No, we just have the 14th in December.
just one session.
One session,
Oh, January.
Day and night, or just
day
day?
and night,
Day and night,
yeah.
wow,
One
okay.
I don't know why we can't have a meeting on Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. We can
Silence.
discuss parking lots over turkey.
Right, my favorite subject.
Oh, is it? Yes. Oh, yeah.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Gloria and second by Craig, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, we are adjourned till 6 o'clock.